past all of them as well. What a move to the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Don't trust your hearing. You made a monster, I'm your imposter. Go ahead and wander, but don't trust the water. I'm an honor of the deep.
Hello everybody and welcome to Daytona as the finale location for Season 1 of the World Sportscar Championship plays host to Round 5 of Season 2. It's time for another hour and a half of racing as we cross into the second half of our second season in the World Sportscar Championship. It's time for LMP3s and GT4s to bring the action again. Hello everybody, my name is Ewan O'Leary alongside Jack Stiles here for another round of the championship, and it's great to be back here at Daytona again, Jack, not in January for once, which this circuit only seems to be used at otherwise. It's a great place to have our finale. It saw some drama last time we were here. This time though, it's the mid part of the season as everybody shapes themselves through the this nothing period, I guess, until they get to the end of the season and things all get serious all over again. It's time for round 5 and hopefully Daytona is going to provide another fantastic race.
I think most drivers, myself included, by the time we get to this stage of the year, they're already fed up at Daytona. You know, we have the Raw here at the start of the year, and a week later we have the 24 hours of Daytona. But as you say, it's the middle of the season. It's about consolidating your position so far that you have gained. Some people have had a great start to this championship. Some people maybe not the start that they would have wished for. So a lot of work here to do at Daytona. It's a circuit that always will throw up some surprises. It will always throw up someone who you aren't expecting, and they'll run around at the front, and that's definitely happened so far in qualifying, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Daytona is going to be an interesting one, and as we head into the second half of the season, I think everyone's now starting to get used to where they are on the circuit, where they are in the pack, and what they can expect from these events.
Yeah, there might be a few surprises and weird things going on in 2 weeks as well in Mugello, but there we go. That's the last of the really small, narrow circuits, I suppose. But this isn't exactly a wide open expanse of tarmac all over the place, Daytona, so we'll see how they get on. Let's have a look at some of the drivers' standings as we head forward into the second half of our season. The 2 drop weeks have been applied, so if you're wondering why the points have gone backwards, we've not been adding loads of penalties. It is just a couple of drop weeks added. Matt Caruana and Christoph Herbernil, as a result, are only separated by 2 points. Nathan Moore only another couple back. Adam State is very much up there as well. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Julian Plumet, who started out really well actually 2 weeks ago at Interlagos. Couldn't quite get the result together. Callum Brandt, Matthias Penteler and Taylor Lane are all separated by a couple of points. Leo Bonneman and Nikolai Loft round out the top 10 in LMP3 Pro. In LMP3 AM, we're going to see at the top Mike Mafarqua by just 4 points. Joost Boymeister has been telling me how to pronounce his name. I'm going to try to. He's in second. Petter Herschel is in third, ahead of Mads Kjelsen, then Dan Piazza to round out the top 5. Adam Locke is in sixth position. Nicholas Skeets and Adam Hedgecock are tied for 7th. Nicholas Salaputis and Dallin Banshaw are tied for 9th. In the GT4s, we then get to those who have dominated a little bit more, although, as I say, the drop points have closed everyone up a little bit. Timo Hayden has 4 points over Sasha Engelsey, and Adam Isaacson only another 1 back. Matt Loveridge is there too. Thomas Mark Burgess has done well since a return, or an appearance in the series, I should say. Jeremy Rollo is 6th, ahead of Emmanuel Gazzella, then Alessandro Proti, who's maybe underperformed compared to his talent. Ashley Finch and Michael Pedersen round up the top 10. And then finally in the GT4 AMs, where we got our best finale last time we were here at Daytona. Josh Boot missed out that time. He's on top now though. Lee King McGee 5 points behind him, and then a big gap back to Paul King. Evan Natafas and Jack Wilkins are tied for 4th. Lee Perry is just outside the top 5 with Rob Sutherland. Then there's a bit more of a gap back to Jack Osborne, Howard Hassan, Riley Phillips. All of those not having been at too many of the races so far this season. This is the team points as well. So close back here. Writer Engineering Esports are leading the way by just a singular point. That's Mac Mafarqua and Petter Herschel, 2 LMP3 drivers ahead of 2 GT4 drivers, Sasha Engelsey and Timo Hayden for Impulse. Then it's WSR Esports, who have got a mix of LMP3s and GT4s, then Boots and VDS by Undercut. Another mix in the form of DCW Racing that round out the top 5. And then the rest of them go through on the bottom of your screen, although it is still relatively close. It's the top 3 that's really going to be the focus in the team standings, where they're just separated by 12 points. We're under the night sky here, Jack, as we so often seem to be at Daytona, and we have indeed seen some surprises in qualifying. Wondering what you make of the championship standings now, though, that we've applied 2 drop weeks. It's double the amount of drop weeks that we got in season 1, although it was only a 6-round season last time around. This time it is 8. But when you consider that you can't take your drop week on the final round, it means that the sort of amount of drops that you have as a percentage actually goes up a little bit to 2 out of 7. So I wonder what effect that's going to have on the season, and quite what that's done to the standings already. I mean, just looking at it on face value, it has made things a bit closer.
Yeah, I have to agree, especially the LMP3 Pro standings really stood out to me. If you think about how dominant sort of Matt Caruana and Christoph Herbenier have been at the front of that field all season long, to see the WSR Esports butt kicker cars up the top fighting for that championship, that's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Another one I think as well could be that GT4 AM category, of course. Josh Boot, who's currently on your screens in qualifying, has been incredibly fast, currently only 4th as it stands, but you got to look at how fast Jack Osborne was at the last round, and yes, he hasn't done all the rounds, but the drop weeks are going to help him. If he has a consistent run through the second half of the season, that's going to be a serious challenge to the GT4 AM championship, because his 2 drop weeks are going to be 0 points, whereas if Josh Boot has a fantastic championship, his drop weeks could be big chunks of points that's going to bring them back towards those who haven't done a full season but have had a very good part season. The drop weeks always do make it interesting, and seeing how that's going to span out and play out over the course of the rest of the championship is something we're going to have to keep an eye on over the course of the next sort of 4-6 weeks or so.
Yeah, we certainly are. Now, I mentioned in my rundown of the standings there, as we have a look at track conditions, which are absolutely perfect in terms of temperatures. just 24 degrees Celsius. There's another talking point that I'll get to in a couple of moments' time. But first of all, a message we received since the last race from someone telling us telling me how to pronounce his name. Jost Boymeister, I'm going to go for. He says
I think we're both guilty of not getting it right.
Okay.
So I will apologise, Joost. I'm probably still butchering it, so please shout at me after the event to tell me if I'm getting it wrong. But
yeah, the only thing I'm mad about is the fact you didn't tell me 3 rounds ago. I would have listened after 1 round, but never mind. Doesn't matter now. We're halfway through the season. We'll try and get it right from here and in. Jost Boymeister, there you go. He's qualified here, by the way. It's not irrelevant. He's 6th in LMP3 AM, but we'll get to those in a few moments' time. It looks like there's been some strange games going on in LMP3 qualifying, to be honest. We didn't see it, of course. We only came to air for GT4s, but I think what we're seeing here, Jack, is maybe an indication of what we would have seen in LMP3. The amount of cars that were coming over the line a few moments ago with the Impulse Racing train all over the line together, benefiting from the slipstream, was quite remarkable, really, and maybe an indicator of what we saw in that first part of qualifying as well.
I'm just looking at my track map, and I'm pretty sure that half of the GT4 field is currently on your screens coming out of Speedway 2. So everyone obviously trying to maximise the draft. As Ewan is alluding to, some weird going-ons have happened in LMP3 qualifying, and you're seeing the jostling into the bus stop to make sure everyone's got the perfect positioning. I think Impulse are going to be trying to play some games. You can currently see Thomas Marks Burgess fastest on a 1:52.018, but the likes of Timo Heide and Sasha Anglesey running about 2/10 slower. So I wonder whether Thomas might be leading the pack as it stands at the moment to bring those two a bit closer up the field. But yeah, there's some interesting tactics going on, and I think it's going to show itself across qualifying.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to avoid somewhat is everybody else using their train, but this is the sort of the disadvantage of success, if you like, is that everybody wants to try and do the same, and you can see the amount of teams and drivers, mostly Mercedes admittedly, trying to use this to benefit their own qualifying lap at the moment as well. It does feel in some ways like Impulse are being victims of their own success here in the GT4 race at the moment. They're top 2 in the pro standings, for example. Everybody knows they're the team to beat, and I don't think they're particularly pleased everybody else is using their slipstream, but who can really blame them?
No, I don't think I can blame those who are following behind Impulse. I'll tell you what this reminds me of, you, and it kind of reminds me of the truly trains you used to get in sort of late 2000s Formula 1, where everyone gets, admittedly, they're not stuck behind the Impulse racing cars, but everyone gets stuck behind Jarno Trulli for some reason or another. But in fact, actually, it looks as though Adam Isaacson's sort of plugged himself onto the front of that pack, whether he's tried to get in it. Currently sitting down in 7th in qualifying, so actually sort of one of the worst qualifying we've seen so far from the SimRC.de driver this season, and he is indeed staying high, cutting down across one of the noses of the Impulse Racing team train, but yes, going to slot himself in and try and give himself a good lap here in qualifying. They're only going to have time for one more lap with what's remaining on the board, 1 minute and 11 seconds, and they will get a chance to finish their next lap with this being an open qualifying session. Everyone running right up high to really maximise that top speed. Oh no, okay, Impulse have bailed.
They have, so they've sort of self-sabotaged almost in order to get Adam Isaacson out of his rhythm as well here. The Impulse guys are going to be done with the session then. Not sure which of them is remaining to come to the line here, because there was one at the front of the train that was continuing on, and it was, well, I'm not sure, but Alessandro Proti has used their slipstream, and I mentioned it's not been a very good season for him so far. That's the talent that he possesses. That's why I mentioned that when he was down in the standings, he's maybe underperforming. Well, there may be reasons for that, of course, and it may not be his fault, but there's the talent that he has. He is currently on pole here in GT4 Pro. Now, who can beat him? Thomas Mark Burgess is out there at the moment, but he doesn't have a draft, and I wouldn't imagine that anybody will be able to beat Proti if they don't have one.
I think Marks Burgess is currently, I'm not sure whether he got a good run onto the start of the lap, because obviously he had to get out of it on the super speedway to make sure that the driver Adam Isaacson did not get a run. I'm just looking at Isaacson now. No, I think he's bailed in his lap, so I think this could be qualifying pretty much over at the front of the GT4 field. We could still see some moving in the middle of the pack, but I think most of the drivers now have lost the draft train from Impulse.
It looks like it. A couple of drivers here making one of their own. One of them is Emmanuel Gexeller in 10th place in Pro, but behind a few of the AMs, unfortunately, as well, as the AM driver Evan Tafas makes his way out of the bus stop chicane now, which I'm still going to call, unfortunately. It's a bit of muscle memory. I know it's the Le Mans chicane these days, but it doesn't quite sound right. So there you go. He's making his way towards the line. Not sure whether he's on an improvement or not, but I doubt it. And he's going to need quite a monumental one to get into the top 4 as well. He's about half a second away from the front 2 rows, although they won't quite be ordered like that. The fields are mixed up in Pro and AM. Lee King McGee would have qualified 9th as a Pro driver if he was, but he's not. He's ahead of a good few Pros, and that goes without factoring in any of those who haven't qualified, although there aren't any in Pro. There is a GT4 AM driver, Haddad Hassan, who hasn't qualified. Taylor Lane for the Pros in LMP3 hasn't qualified, and for the AMs in LMP3, Nicholas Skeets didn't qualify for whatever reason, so they'll be at the back of the LMP3 train. That makes us brings us up to 40 cars on the grid here tonight. We're starting to see a slight dip in numbers compared to the start of the season, but it's still a comfortable number as far as Daytona is concerned, and here is how they're ordered for the race tonight. Mads Kjodsen, as an AM driver, is on pole, ahead of Adam State, who shocked the pro world with a front row start, and Nathan Moore is up there as well. Good work from WSR. Nikolai Loft is 4th, ahead of Matt Farquhar and Adam Locke. That's 3 AMs and 3 Pros on your screen there. Then we've got a new driver, Remy Fortin, in 4th place for Pro. Then Peter Herschel, who's 4th placed in AM. Then Christophe Herbigno, 9th overall and 5th in Pro with his teammate Julien Plumet. Then it's Callum Brandt and Adam Hedgecock on the 6th row. Benjamin Gregory, and it was good to see back, by the way, it's alongside Leo Bonneman. Then it's Joost Bouwmeester in 15th place, Tico Leventhal and Toby Ward to round out those that qualified. Alessandro Proti is the best qualifying GT4 driver, ahead of Thomas Marks Burgess, the first of 3 Impulse drivers. Timo Hayden and Sasha Anglesey join them after. Then it's Michael Pedersen, Josh Boot and Jeremy Rouleau to round out the top 12 rows. Then it is Richard Simner and Adam Isaacson on the next row. In 27th place is Lee King McGee, who, it's worth noting, got overhauled by Josh Boot very, very late on there. He's second in AM, ahead of Ashley Finch. Then Jack Osborne and Paul King round out the top 15 rows. Then it's Manuel Gazzeller and Matt Loveridge. Evan Tafas, who was quite a way away from improving his position. Ben Hicks is 34th, ahead of Lee Barrage and Jack Wilkins. And then those that final driver that qualified in the form of Rob Sutherland. Then those 3 that didn't. Taylor Lane, Nicholas Skitz and Howard Hassan will be taking to the start. At least the LMP3s out of those 3 will be. They've already gridded up onto the circuit. But what a surprising LMP3 qualifying session. First of all, that Matt Caruana is not here. That's worth noting, first and foremost. Second of all, Christophe Herbigno is 5th. Third of all, there's an AM driver on pole. What a bizarre set of circumstances we have for this race.
Welcome to Daytona, and this is what this circuit can do. It can throw up the surprises. Congratulations to Mads Kjodsen on getting at the pole position. There's some very stiff competition around him. 2 WSR Esports cars in 2nd and 3rd, so wouldn't be surprised if Adam State and Nathan Moore try and take advantage of this. I am very surprised to see the Boost and VDS cars so far down the order, the highest being Christophe Herbigno in 9th position, Leo Bonneman back in 14th after his incredible performance last time out. It's very, very surprising to see maybe a different approach being taken on setup view, and it's something which we saw during the Raw in January, that these LMP3 cars, there are 2 very different ways of getting the lap time out of here at Daytona. One is to take all of the downforce off it and pretty much turn it into a land speed record car, or it won't turn, or to put all the downforce on it and to turn it into what can only be described as an articulated lorry in a straight line. So it's 2 very different approaches, maybe Boost and VDS going with the latter and WSR going with the former, but it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out over the course of the race.
And another strategy element that's going to be interesting as well is when they take their pit stops and how much fuel they're burning here, because we've seen a lot of wiggle room for drivers so far this season in terms of when they're allowed to pit. Will there be the same freedom of ability to pit when you want here at Daytona, or will it be tighter on fuel maybe?
I think it's going to be more about pitting with the pack. It's going to be very much like a NASCAR Super Speedway race where you don't want to get left out on your own because you're going to lose too much time. But the fuel saving could be incredibly strong here. Maybe we see some people go for the one stop. Maybe it's going to be possible today. We just do not know. We saw last time out, the strategy is incredibly open. I think it's even more open at Daytona.
Let's find out as we bring the field to green under the lights at Daytona. Time to get underway with our second half of the World Sports Car Championship season. Oh, and it's a very stacked up start in LMP3 in the midfield. But underway from the front, Mads Kjeldsen, the AM driver who took pole for this race, gets us off to a great start. It looks like his teammate is doing very well on the start here, as well as the WSR boys get crowded out a little bit. Nikolai Loft is ahead of Nathan Moore already in the pro standings, but it looks like at the very least it's been a clean start in LMP3 as they head towards the International Horseshoe for the first time with the green flags waving around the circuit. What happens in GT4 as Alessandro Proti gets underway from the high side on the high banks of Daytona? He will lead on the way down towards turn number 1 as well, with everybody battling for real estate in this first braking zone of the race. Alessandro Proti will hold on to the lead though in what's been a clean start by the looks of things for both categories.
Everyone through turn 1 safely, and that is excellent to see. Now we're going to see Impulse Racing in GT4 Pro, I think, start to put some pressure onto Alessandro Proti. Adam Isaacson will be keen to get through the pack. You can see him currently mid-pack behind the GT4 AM leader as Josh Boot put a better qualifying time in at the very closing stages, but a good start from everyone. And we have had some shenanigans for the GT4 field a little bit further back.
Well, we'll get a look at anything that's happened here on lap 1 a little bit later on as we get this race properly underway. But at the very front of the field, Mads Kjeldsen leads the way ahead of Adam State. Then it's Nikolai Loft, his teammate, Nathan Moore, and then second placed in Adam Locke. Mac Farquhar is next ahead of Petter Herschel. Fortin, Herbino and Plumet round out the top 10. Only 6 pros in that top 10 and 4 AMs, a lot of them ahead of maybe where they should be. So there you go, make of that what you will. Out over the line for the leaders then, it's Mads Kjeldsen who's just down the bottom there. You can see the LMP3 AM leader just towards the bottom, leading the field around, and already a big stack up into turn 1. And what I noticed there, or what I think I noticed, was a bit of a reluctance to lead the field around.
Yeah, it looks as though Adam State is cycled to the lead of the pack. Mads Kjeldsen and Nikolai Loft now running 2 and 3. So the two teammates in the WSR Esports sandwich with their drivers in 1st and 4th. So that one's going to be a very interesting one to see how that pans out. I wouldn't be surprised to see potentially Nikolai go ahead, but leading here is going to mean you're going to be using the most fuel, and that is the objective of the strategy. You don't want to do that. So I can see why Mads Kjeldsen has dropped back into 2nd position. They're going to let Adam State do the work. I want to see how long it's going to be before we get some bump drafting as we head to a replay.
Let's have a look at what's happened early on to Evan Natafas, who's dropped to the back of GT4 AM, and that is one of the reasons why. It looked like he was already quite a long way back actually before he went for a spin at the West Horseshoe there, and he is properly at the back now in that category, I'm afraid to say. Meanwhile, the LMP3s weave down the back straight. There is a small break in the field where Christophe Herbino is for the moment. He's battling with Julien Plumet, which is why, and there they are in the midfield, if you like, of the LMP3 order. So they need to be careful because, as you said, Jack, it's about pitting with the pack, but if you're not with the pack in the first place, then you're really in trouble.
Yeah, it looks as though maybe starting to fragment. As you can see, Christophe Herbino leading this pack. I have got top speeds that I can see, but it looks as though everyone currently sitting around the 290. Another replay up on your screen. This is Paul King in the 99, and a little bit of contact on the opening lap, and this is what I saw on my track map, and around goes the XR Sim Sport machine. Wasn't quite sure who else got caught up in that. I did see a couple of cars stop, so unfortunate for those GT4 machines. Another important note in the GT4 pack, Adam Isaacson got a lap 1 slowdown, Ewan. He's down to P14 overall now in that class. He's behind most of the AM field, so even more work for the SimRC.de driver to do.
Yeah, exactly. Slowdowns kill you anyway around this circuit, but on lap 1 they absolutely do. So not good at all for Adam Isaacson, who really drops back all of a sudden. Meanwhile, this is the LMP3s again. One more thing on that replay, by the way. I don't know if you noticed in the background, Evan Natafas going for a spin on the first lap at the International Horseshoe. So in the first 2 hairpins of the race, he seemingly had a spin there, and that's why he's down the back of the field of the GT4 AMS, which is where he is still situated. Great start from, or a decent start anyway, for Nicholas Skeets at the moment, as he's made some progress up the field, now past Callum Brandt and Toby Ward, but quite a long way off the back of the pack, which is, I guess, what happens when you start at the back. This is into the bus stop chicane, and this is where Adam Isaacson will have got the slowdown by the looks of things. As it all stacks up in front of him, let's try and work out which of the 4 parts of the turn he actually picks this up at, because he's following very closely the Mercedes behind, although maybe it's that. He's ever so slightly further to the left, and there he goes up the hill to serve it. That's what you'll see them do. They'll go and run around the outside, partly to get out of the way, partly because it clears it slightly quicker than it does if you stay on the button, and that is the kind of fine margin that we're looking for here at Daytona.
That did look suspiciously like the exit of the Le Mans chicane where Adam Isaacson picked up that slowdown. Another replay up on your screens. This is the 66 of Toby Ward, one of your AM drivers for Boosted Virage, heading down into that same chicane. And the entry looks nice and clean, but just hasn't got it through the exit of the middle of the corner, and around he goes. He's carried on, he's back on the circuit, he has come down onto the pit lane, but still carrying on. Back to the front of your GT4 Pro field, as Alessandro Puotti still leading the way, but it's Impulse Racing 2, 3 and 4 dominating the rest of the podium.
Yeah, not all looked well, particularly with that LMP3, I've got to say, into the bus stop chicane, but as you say, in the pit lane now, and no surprise there. This is what's going on in GT4. There is the 66 making its way back out again, Toby Ward. Do slightly concern myself for Alessandro Puotti at the moment, because while it's all well and good he's leading the race and it's great to see him on top form again, I just fear that those Impulse trio are just using him at the moment and are going to surpass him later on in the day.
I think that's a sensible thing for Impulse to do. It's what we've seen them do all season long. I'm not really sure why the other drivers haven't really clocked onto it yet, that they are the team who they maximise the fuel saving strategy. We've seen it at every round, so I'm not at all surprised they're doing what they are. I wouldn't be surprised to see some bump drafting being used by this team later on in the race to push themselves back up if they start to lose a bit of time. But Thomas Marks Burgess leading that 3-car pack. And in fact, actually, one of them dropping back, that is the car of Sasha Anglesey. Jeremy Rouleau in the 28 has made his way up into P number 4. So he's actually up 3 positions, one of your sort of the bigger movers in the GT4 field so far in the race, as we watch Richard Simner, who is attached to the back, the only Porsche in this field, Ewan. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares today as a car that's generally known as a bit more of an all-round car in GT4 compared to the Mercedes, which is just big V8 grunt.
Yeah, he's the only one who's entered in a Porsche in Pro, other than Kim-Andre Bjorklund, who I think had his first round at Interlagos, but great to see him doing well today, mixing it up. Currently 11th in the standings in GT4 Pro, as they make their way through the bus stop chicane now and out onto the banking again. This is LMP3, and we're quite close to having traffic involved now, as we see the sort of second group, if you like. It's a lot of AMs and a lot of pros mixed up together, and it's side by side, in fact, here for what I believe is 8th place overall in the group. And here go Julien Plumet, Leo Bonneman trying to work their way through, 3 wide on the way towards the bus stop chicane here, and Matt Mafarka just pulls out the way and says go ahead, because he didn't want to be involved in any of that. He does let them through, and now Rene Fortin is going to be close to them as well. But Christophe Herbineau was previously involved here. He's now 11th, and he's dropped 3.5 seconds off this group.
Yeah, Christophe Herbineau, I'm not sure what's happened. Potentially a slow lap of 44.5 last time around compared to sort of the 43 flats that the others around him were running, so potentially gaining a slowdown somewhere on circuit, Ewan. But as you can see, it looks as though Leo Bonneman, Julien Plumet already utilising the bump draft. We're not even 10 minutes into the race to push themselves up the pack. The front 3 have got away, but Leo Bonneman and Julien Plumet are now starting to attach themselves onto sort of the second pack that runs from 4th through 6th of Peter Herschel, Nikolai Loft and Adam Locke. So there's still a bit of work to do for these Boost and VDS machines, but they're slowly making their way up the pack. And of course, with Christophe Herbineau now being down in 11th overall in LMP3, he's got a little bit more work to do.
It's quite a lot of work. Here is Adam Hedcock, who's gone for a big hit at the Le Mans chicane. That is big damage, I'm afraid, for Hedcock, who will do well to even get that back to pit lane. It's such a common error through the bus stop chicane to lose it halfway through, and if you're spinning off to the right hand side, the wall will collect you very quickly. You can get lucky if you spin to the left, but you don't often get the choice, and Hedcock has got very little of his front LMP3 remaining here.
He has managed to get it down back onto pit lane, but there was, as you say, a lot of damage. They're very easy to do. There's a very nasty bump on the exit of the bus stop, which, especially in these LMP3 cars, which are quite stiff, will push you round quite easily. It can happen as well in LMDH machines. You can see it jumping across the bus stop curbs there from one of the Boosted VDS cars back to the replay machine. This is Taylor Lane. He is the first retirement of the day in the 32. Just looks as though this is Christophe Herbignon. This is where he's lost the time. And Taylor Lane losing his front clip, and I think deciding to call it a day.
Yeah, I think so. First retirement in LMP3, by the way. I think we've got Ashley Finch out as well from GT4. We have indeed, as far as I can see. So that might well be our second retirement, but first in LMP3. There was some aggressive weaving going on after that incident there, which just suggests a bit of displeasure for Taylor Lane, and not just because he's lost his front clip, but maybe because he felt he was wronged by all of that. But we'll see in the aftermath of that one. As we go back to GT4, it's a lot closer in GT4 actually than it is in LMP3 at the moment. Not a single gap inside the top 5. It's less than a second right now, but that may be about to change as the front LMP3s have to work their way through this group.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting for the LMP3s, especially if they catch them up at the bus stop. There's nothing they can do. This is the replay of what happened to the 21 of Ashley Finch in the WSR Esports Aston Martin, heading into the first corner on the outside. A little bit of contact with Josh Boot, and around he has gone, and it just looks as though, sitting duck for the 51. That looks like Lee Berridge has come around the corner and just wasn't expecting the Aston Martin to be there, and that is day done for Ashley Finch.
You could argue it's day done for Lee Berridge in some ways. He's still out there, but he's nearly 2 seconds a lap slower than he should be, and where he was earlier. Really disappointing for Berridge, who is at the moment in that clutch of drivers trying to be best of the non-Mercedes in GT4 AM. He's in the McLaren and he's 6th at the moment overall, but he is best non-Mercedes. This is side-by-side over the line again for Richard Simner as he's about to get overtaken here by Adam Isaacson. What a recovery it would be for him if he could get back up towards the front again in that 7th place. In fact, it might be even more as he gets down the inside of Michael Pedersen as well. Could be a 6th place even, and I think it might well be as he's through here. Isaacson, yeah, it is 6th place, so great recovery, but you just wonder what this is doing to his fuel loads compared to those around him, as he's the one making overtakes and everybody else is saving fuel. They're not exactly legitimate overtakes, you could argue.
I would also argue that Adam Isaacson is now at a point in the field where he can start to back off. He's back with the leaders, he's back on the pace he needs to be, so he's actually tucked up behind one of the Impulse Racing cars that is Sasha Anglesey in the 3. So he's back in position of where he wants to be at this stage of the race. He can start to save the fuel. Your LMP3 leaders have now caught the GT4s. We're seeing the mid-pack of LMP3 making their way through the back end of the GT4 field. This is that battle for 5th. Leo Bonnemine now cycling himself up to 5th position to lead this pack, and Julien Plumet trying to push through behind. They brought Mac McFarquhar with them up into the pack, and Nikolai Loftus cycled all the way down to 10th. So after a strong qualifying, he's starting to lose his positions. Remy Fontaine, we're on board with the new driver making his debut this season here at Daytona, currently having an excellent run down in 9th overall.
Yes, there's a solid run so far for Fontaine, and through. Oh no, contact in front and a swerve to avoid, and Fontaine's going to get another couple of places here as one of the cars in front goes straight around in front of them. I think it's Adam Locke who's gone around, and it is indeed. He drops entirely from the top 10. Plumet and Loft had to slow down as a result, and here goes Fontaine on Mac McFarquhar as well, who would have had to lift. Fontaine, the only one who didn't have to. And so Plumet's going to follow through here on Mafakwa, although they'll battle and argue about it into turn 1. Fontaine through at least. Not entirely sure how that transpired, but a scary moment for everybody following Adam Locke.
and it looks as though Adam Locke has got back underway, but he's right down towards the back of the LMP3 field. Remy Fortin taking as much opportunity as he could, getting himself up into fifth position, and more cars round the 25 is stopped. That's Leo Bonneman, so there's been some disaster in traffic up at the first horseshoe. Macwick Farquhar has got through in the 77 unscathed, but yeah, more disasters here.
It was the AM leader in GT4, Josh Boot, involved in all that, by the way. This is Adam Locke into the Le Mans chicane. He's up on that final curb and he goes for an unbelievably lucky spin in some ways. I mean, it's going to take him an age to get back going again from here, as you can see, but at least he didn't hit anything hard quickly, because he very easily could have, and at least nobody hit him either. He needs to go into the grass to get going again as well. What a palaver that is. This is Josh Boot, who got dived by an LMP3 that went for a spin and then clipped him on the way past. Now, it was one of the Bootson cars that has now lost its front clip as well, and I think that, well, I don't know even who to guess that was, to be honest with you. Could have been Leo Bonneman, who is lost a bit of time on this lap and is a Bootson driver. It is indeed Leo Bonneman who loses his front clip in the process, but Josh Boot's going to be the most furious about that one. He loses the GT4 AM lead.
And now another replay. Richard Simner, I can't work out if that was a spin, or there might have been some contact there with Macwick Farquhar, so it's really started to hit the fan on this lap in the traffic, and I think as well Leo Bonneman's rejoin is what took his front clip off. Wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit more damage to the other cars around him. It looks as though the driver of Christophe Herbigno could have been caught up in that rejoin as well. So disaster on the last lap, and it's I think it's continuing here, but back to the lead of GT4. Actually, it looks as though it's settled down here. Richard Simner around again and deciding it's time to take the tow.
Well, it's just, maybe deciding that it's not worth trying to wait for a clear gap. He might as well just tow and then rejoin, or not rejoin, depending on what he decides to do in a few moments' time. We have had Paul King also in the pit lane for a good few minutes now. That's not good news at all, as far as he is concerned, but dear me, what a chaotic start we have seen here today for the 5th round of the World Sports Car Championship. This is what happened to Simner, is it? No. This is an LMP3 going around, and don't tell me this is what sends Simner around. It is. It's Simner going straight into the side of Benjamin Gregory, who didn't rejoin in the best fashion, I've got to say, and that may cause Simner to call it a day.
Yeah, not sure what Simner is going to do at this point. He's still taking himself back to pit road, but I suspect as well Benjamin Gregory in the 113 is going to have some damage for the pro driver. Back to live pictures, we're seeing the tail end of the LMP3 field make their way through the lead of the GT4. Adam Isaacson heading through the bus stop. He's still sat quite comfortably 5th position now, in fact actually 4th position now in GT4 overall. Apparently I can't read the timing screen, although he has lost quite a considerable amount of time to the leaders. So Alessandro Perotti, Thomas Marks Burgess and Timo Hayden have managed to get away at the front of the field. So Isaacson and Anglesey have now really got a task on to make that time back up.
They do. And Perotti, for some reason, still pushing on with this and trying to set best laps of the race, etc. But at 53.3 on that last lap. Maybe he wants to reduce the amount of drivers at the front, I suppose, but it's only really to the benefit of those behind him. Not really sure what his game plan is a bit later on. A good afternoon to everybody who's watching us this afternoon, or this evening indeed, on RaceSpotTV. Somebody mentioning that it's a shame Matt's travelling today. I'm going to presume that's Matt Caruana. Matt Loveridge is here, for example. Because it's one of his favourite circuits, apparently, which is a shame. I was thinking this before we came to air, actually, about the LMP3 Pro title fight between, well, I'm going to call it between Matt Caruana and Christophe Herbigno. In reality, it's a lot more nuanced and close than that, because Nathan Moore and Adam State are also within 10 points of the lead, for goodness sake. But I'm going to simplify it for the point of this point. Matt Caruana's bad races, in my opinion, have been worse than Christophe Herbigno's, but because of the drop weeks, and Matt Caruana's 2 bad races, I would argue, have been sort of negated as these current standings show. It means that Herbigno has actually been put behind him in the standings. Now, as far as this race is going, I think Herbigno could well see a drop round coming for this race. If it gets better, then fair enough, he might avoid it, but if not, then this will become a drop round, and a good score will take over, whereas for Matt Caruana, he's not here, so a score will have to take over. I think a worse score is going to take over as starting to count towards his tally than it will do for Herbigno, if that makes any sense at all. And so we could be looking at our new championship leader, or we just were in those last few moments, because for me, Caruana's been a little bit up and down, although as good as he has been in his wins, there has been plenty of non-wins as well.
I would argue that Caruana's recovery drives have been very strong, but of course
you don't get any points for it, though.
No, that is true. But his I believe his worst finish could be a 4th, if my memory serves me correctly. I'd need to go and have a look at how the points. He may have done. I'd need to go and have a look at the points, but he's obviously going to have a 0 score here. Christophe Herbigno currently sitting in 7th. He is slowly making his way back up the order, but he's 19 seconds behind Adam State, who's leading the race, in fact, by 3.5 seconds at the moment. So I'm not sure, that's going to be, it's not going to be Herbigno's best score by a long way this season, so it will become a drop today. But this is where you need to be sort of very quick with a calculator and a spreadsheet, and this is where my other half can come in very handy, because she's definitely the spreadsheet wizard in our household. But this is where the drivers have to start thinking how the drop scores are going to affect. Obviously 2 as well, Ewan, and they're going to count over the next 3 races, as you said at the start of the broadcast. The last round not going to count towards, you have to count that point score. So if you get a 0 on that round, that's going to count. You have no choice. But as is the way in WSR series, and has been for an incredibly long time, even back to the days when I did the World GT Championship. So that is something the drivers have to think about. I do agree that I think we're going to see Christophe Herbigno in the lead of the championship at the end of today. But however, don't count out the WSR Esports teammates. They're running 1 and 2 at the moment. I think they're in a very strong position where they could pick up good points here today and replace a drop score that's around the P5, P6 area. I could see Adam State, if he stays where he is at the moment, which is a stretch because we still have an hour and 8 minutes to go, I can see Adam State potentially coming away from today as the championship leader.
Maybe, yeah. The reason I bring it up also is because they've both got 2 wins each, and effectively by employing the 2 drop weeks now, we've effectively evened it up so close that Herbigno's on 2 wins and Matt Caruana's on 2 wins, and that's all that's counting. That's the reason I bring it up. It makes today very poignant and important, really, as far as the championship goes. But as you say, WSR are by no means out of it just yet either in LMP3 Pro, so we'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the season goes. I'm trying to remember I remember that recovery drive a couple of weeks ago from Matt Caruana. Wasn't he 4th that day, maybe 3rd? He was certainly recovered to the top 5 after spinning on the opening lap. Trying to finish, remember where he finished at Catalunya. Can't remember whether he was whether he DNF'd that one or whether he was second to Herbigno.
I believe that was second to Herbigno at Barcelona. I'm going to go and find the championship points so we can discuss this over the course of the race and actually discuss it properly when we can understand where people have finished. Yeah,
we're trying to off of memory at the moment, but yeah, they've both had decent seasons. I just maybe it feels worse because Caruana's had more issues during races. He's had to recover from them. But as you say, you only get points for where you finish at the end of the race and not for what you did in between times. So it doesn't matter, I suppose, in some ways. We'll keep abreast of all the championship implications as we go along, but I think it's going to be one of those very close seasons indeed. May well be in GT4 as well, but I think in terms of a race, this could be a closer race in this class today. The top 8 all-pro drivers are in one long line at the moment for the lead. Alessandro Proti has led for all of the 23 minutes that have passed at Daytona so far, and 7 drivers are currently loving that development because they're benefiting from the draft in a way that is not really happening in LMP3 anymore. The gaps are a lot bigger in the faster of the 2 classes.
Yeah, I think LMP3 really broken up by that first run through traffic. Of course, it was incredibly chaotic, as we've seen, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the course of the rest of the race. But GT4 has come back together. I think there's sort of been a bit of, as you say, a bit of concatenation of the pack to bring the leaders back to one another. So Alessandro Proti still leading the way. Now, I don't think he will be after the first round of pit stops, Ewan. because he has been out front since the start of the race. So I can see someone else jumping to the front. I have a bet that that could be Timo Hayden, because he's been sat in third. Obviously, that's actually a really good position for doing fuel saving, and he hasn't dropped back from the top three, whereas the likes of Sasha Anglesey and Adam Isaacson, they've had to push themselves back up into the lead pack, so that would use a bit more fuel. And of course, Isaacson's had to have the recovery drive through the opening portion of the race. So I think Timo Hayden actually in the best position at the moment on fuel and pure guess alone to be in the lead come the end of the first round of pit stops. However, that's not where he wants to be, so maybe going to play the strategy a little bit to make sure he comes out second or third to put himself in a better position come the end of the race.
Well, I think we should draw on the experiences of the first 4 rounds so far and what Impulse Racing have done, because very rarely have they taken on the full tank of fuel at this first stop in the history of Season 2 anyway, through the previous 4 rounds and 6 hours of racing that we've already had this season. They often, at least with one of their drivers, take a little bit of a short fill so that they can get out front. Now, I don't believe that leading is a totally bad idea as long as there's nobody with you and behind you. That's when it's a danger. We're talking about Poitier as if he's doing something really wrong. The only reason it's really wrong, in my opinion, to lead at the moment is because he's leading so many people around. If one of those Impulse drivers can take on sort of the minimum amount of fuel possible at this first stop, get out front, benefit from not towing anybody around, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to be leading, even at Daytona.
What the other, as you say that, it kind of came to my mind, the other situation that I could see arising is that the Impulse cars all leave the pit lane together. As you say, they have been the ones who have always gone a little bit different on strategy throughout this series so far. So actually Impulse could do it as well, where they get the 3 cars into the lead and then bump draft each other away from the rest of the pack. It's something we've seen happen here at Daytona. It's fully plausible in these GT cars, and it's actually sort of how the Boost and VDS cars in LMP3 managed to make their way through the pack in the opening stages of the race before that all went to pot. So that's going to be an interesting one to see. Obviously, the likes of Adam Isaacson and Alessandro Proiti, where they're running on their own, that's much harder because you don't have a drafting partner. So it's very much now this opening stage of the race. I kind of see it as like the first 100 laps of the Daytona 500, Ewan, where you're trying to make friends. So that you've got, especially if you're on your own, you're trying to make friends with the people so that come the end of the race, you've got a drafting partner.
Yeah, it may well be, but by the time we get to the end of this race, it's all going to look very different to that. Adam Isaacson's still on the move here, and he's got a bit wide there. Needs to be careful he doesn't get another slowdown, like we just nearly saw Matt Mafarko get as we were riding on board with him there. I was surprised he didn't actually have to pull height around the NASCAR turns 3 and 4, but clearly not, and he got away without a slowdown penalty. This is the group at the front of GT4, 27 minutes in. They want to go another couple of laps further, and again, I'm slightly concerned on their behalf that they're not going to be able to do this on fuel, but we must be getting towards the end of the stint now, where you're making it your first pit stop in a couple of laps or so. I'm just not sure how much wiggle room they're going to have, but maybe they will do after all. We'll just wait and see when these first pit stops really start to happen. I believe the top 8 are still all involved here at the front of GT4, and they certainly are. Jack Osborne is leading in AM with just Lee King McGee behind, so it's not exactly a group in GT4 AM, but instead a duo. This is a new fastest lap you just saw at the top of the screen. Nathan Moore is into second place overall now, by the way, and chasing his teammate down Adam State. The WSR esports drivers, for whatever reason, seem to be the class of the field at Daytona today.
Yeah, the WSR Esports drivers in LMP3 Pro apps, looking very comfortable at the front of the field. And while we're on the subject of fuel numbers, Ewan, I do have some potential fuel numbers for LMP3. So the max fuel tank that they can take is 63 litres. And if my numbers are correct, that a certain application is spitting out at me based on the numbers from running LMP3 here earlier on this year, they're going to need to take about 90 litres across the 2 stops. So we're not going to see a 1 stop. I don't think it's going to be possible to save 30 litres worth of fuel, but it's going to be interesting to see whether people split it into, say, 2 45-litre stops, or they go the big stop and the little stop. That's going to be an interesting one. Tyres shouldn't be a factor here today. As we said earlier on, it's incredibly cool. It's 24 degrees. We're heading further into the night, so that's only only going to get cooler as the air temperature drops. So tyres I don't think are going to be a factor today. I think it's going to be all about the fuel usage.
I think that's going to be the key word of the day as the LMP3s make their way around the high banks at the moment. We've already seen a few LMP3s into pit lane. Leo Bonneman, who's understandably been in, considering he lost some of his front end earlier. Julien Plumet was a couple of laps later. A couple of laps after that was Adam Locke. Then after that spin, of course, Adam Hedgecock had already been in for one stop. Surprised he's still going, actually, at the pace he is, considering he didn't really stop for very long. But he has used his fast repair, as has the other three that I've already mentioned have been into pit lane. They'll just be hoping to make it on one more stop as we approach on 1 hour remaining. Just a third of this race complete, very nearly, as we've got pit stops again now in LMP3. That driver will be hoping that this is not a fourth pit stop on fuel already, otherwise there could be a bit of trouble later on. No such worries in GT4 as all 8 of the leaders make their way around and past the pit lane the first time round. I think anybody who comes in from this point will feel safe, but I doubt there will have been concerns from many that they would have been having to make 3 stops today. That's a bit of a wild assumption. It's more likely to be 2 today, and it will be for everybody. It's just about the length of those stops, but that's all there really is to think about in these groups right now. There's not a lot in terms of on-track politics happening. Instead, it's all going to happen on pit lane.
As you can see on your screens, though, Adam Isaacson has managed to get himself past Sasha Anglesey, so maybe starting to position himself within the Impulse Racing train, ready for the pit stop. So I don't think it's going to be long until we see it. One thing to note, actually, Ewan, is something one driver we've seen pull off an early stop strategy all the way through the season. I'm going to try and get your name right. Joost Bouwmeester. He's gone for the early stop again. That was the LMP3 car that we saw coming down onto the pit lane. So interesting to see how these early stoppers will go. Obviously, with LMP3 being much more split up, I think the draft train's not going to be as important in that class. The LMP3 leaders actually now coming through your GT4 pack. You can see him in the foreground, and that, I believe, was the car of Adam State. And it would be because Nathan Moore is the first of the leaders to choke. He's come down onto the pit lane.
And we've seen a lead change in LMP3 AM as well, as Petter Herschel is in front of Mads Kjelsen all of a sudden. The gap was coming down, but I didn't think it was quite lead change territory just yet. But Herschel is now ahead, I believe, in towards turn number 1 as they approach the GT4 traffic for a second time. I wonder what Baumeister was just trying to avoid there in LMP3 AM, realising that passing these guys is probably not the best idea when you're about to pit and you're going to come out behind them again anyway. You might as well come in to the pit lane before you have to do it and only do it once instead. Clearly the LMP3 AM leaders are okay with doing it because they are just in the background of some of these shots right here, but you just wonder whether traffic maybe is playing a bit of a role, because passing 8 GT4s in a row is not going to do wonders for your lap time.
No, and I think that's what Nathan Moore has decided as well, to come down onto the pit lane early to get that stop done, avoid the traffic. It is a well-known strategy in endurance racing, one I've used myself, and it can be incredibly advantageous. This is the change for the lead in LMP3 AM. It looks as though the 77 of Peter Herschel went up to the top of the racetrack into turn number 1, and at Mads Kjelsen there was not a lot of fight. So Peter Herschel up into the race lead in AM, and one of the team's championship leaders, actually. That team and Peter Herschel, one of the drivers scoring points.
Yeah, good work from him, as swooping from the very high side to the very low go the LMP3 leaders, and straight in front of Mads Kjelsen. There was one of them. They both come into pit lane now, but dear me, that was very close, as Isaacson gets down the inside into third place now. So these are the games that begin just before pit stops. That shows you that the GT4 stops are very near, because this is effectively free track position for Isaacson. At this stage, you know that you've saved almost all the fuel that you possibly can from your pit stop, so you might as well go for it. And the track position you can gain here is almost free, if you like. This is Joost Baumeister in the LMP3 AM standings, and that is not going to help. As you mentioned, it's an early stop again. That kind of thing is not going to help the strategy.
So unlucky for the 48. Very, very easy to do down into turn 1. Not sure whether Baumeister took tyres at that stop, so could be a cold tyre situation as he came out onto the racetrack into turn number 1 with full fuel for the first time on this second stint. So used back underway, and we are back watching the GT4 Pro leaders, and as you say, Adam Isaacson taking that free spot as they come. We've already seen a pit stop from Matt Loveridge, so potentially going for the undercut. We haven't seen much more. This is the leaders in, this is the 23, isn't it? So this is Mads Kjeldsen coming down onto the pit lane in the LMP3 AM category, and in fact they are back out onto the circuit by the looks of things. So back to the GT4 Pro lead, and Alessandro Puotti, he must be looking at his field numbers by now, Ewan, and thinking, I've made a mistake here.
Maybe, but equally he's not been in yet, so it's not that bad. Clearly he's able to go 35 minutes here, but this may be the end now. No, pulls to the right hand side as if to make it very clear he's not coming in just yet, but there are still a couple of laps to go clearly of this group, which is now down to 7. Matt Loveridge has been into the pit lane from the very back, trying to do something a little bit different as the overall race leader comes in, now matching his teammate. Adam Isaacson gets into second place, but Adam State is now down to second place in LMP3 because he is into pit lane. Now what's the rejoin going to be like with him and Nathan Moore? What's the comparison going to be like? 24.6 seconds in the box for Moore. That seems pretty uniform with someone who's stopped the maximum that they can, as Isaacson has gone for a spin at the International Horseshoe. He got up to second, and now GT4 has seen drama for its best non-Mercedes in the race.
And he did not do that alone. Replay up on your screen now, riding on board. Not the replay I thought we were going to see. This is a Chico Levantara in the 667 taking a spin, heading back out onto the tri-oval after the road course section of the Daytona International Speedway. A nice safe rejoin down to the inside. This is on board with Adam Isaacson heading into the International Horseshoe. This is your current race leader in LMP3, Remy Fortin, just going a little bit too aggressive into the hairpin. And Adam Isaacson, all that work, Ewan, all that work. He's got to try and get back Farquhar. Oh my lord, that's a big incident.
I reckon there's some previous to that one, surely. He's not done that on his own, has he? But equally, maybe. He goes flying through the bus stop, and that will be difficult for him to recover from. Well, it's given Alessandro Puotti the lead that he probably could have done with about half an hour ago, but he's now getting on with it. What's gone on here? Has Matt Farquhar lost brakes? Well, I'm not sure he's made much effort to make the corner there, to be honest with you.
Do you know what? I have to agree. I think he's lost his brakes, and there was a GT4 car, I'm not sure which one, incredibly lucky not to get collected by Matt Farquhar there. GT4 Pro leaders down onto the pit lane, and everyone is coming in. Looks a bit like Noah's Ark 2x2 coming in now, but Alessandro Puotti leading the pack in, and now it's crunch time. Who's going to lead on pit exit?
Yeah, Matt Farquhar certainly didn't have any problem stopping at the end, but there we go. This is back with the... is that the overall... No, that's not the overall leader. That's Nikolai Loft, who's out on the tri-oval, or on the banking, I should say. These are the GT4s leading, though. Now, what do Impulse Racing do here in GT4? And what do the rest do to try and counteract them here? You can see them in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Impulse Racing are doing exactly what you said and going out together, if you like, using each other. 28 seconds in the box from those guys. What about the others? Well... not dissimilar. Puotti. Oh, side by. Oh dear, that's going to be awkward. The teammates there nearly having each other off the road. Thomas Marks Burgess gets out first, then Timo Hayden, who might land himself in a bit of trouble for that. Then Sasha Engelsey, then Alessandro Puotti is about 5 seconds behind. They all short stop then. That's what you suggested they do earlier on, and it has happened. The only problem for them is that Matt Loveridge had the same idea, and he is right with them.
But Matt Loveridge has actually got himself, in, as you say, in between himself and Alessandro Puotti, who is quite a considerable distance behind. I think there was a little bit of disagreement between Thomas Marks Burgess and Timo Hayden as to who would be leading the pack. Not sure either of them wanted to, but Hayden, very lucky to keep control of that, could have blocked the exit of pit lane as well. So Impulse Racing 1, 2, 3 in GT4 Pro, and now I think you're going to see all three of them bunch up together and really make the most of this. They've got a gap, but they have to go, Ewan. They have to make the most of this. 51 minutes remaining. I think you're going to see Alessandro Puotti and Jeremy Rouleau, who he is currently with. They're going to try and bump their way back towards the front of this field. Impulse Racing have to get on this sooner rather than later.
They certainly do. We'll do a bit of a run through in a few moments' time, but not sure everything's quite sorted out yet up and down the field, although it may be, actually. We may have seen everybody in and the field all sorted out. in both classes now. We will wait and see about that, but just over 50 minutes remaining. The two WSR Esports Pipe Bucket cars are leading the way. It's the LMP3 Pros back at the head of the field. The fun is over, if you like, for the AM drivers anyway. They are no longer at the head, with Petter Herschel and Mads Kjeldsen separated by a second and a half at the front of their class. But what a day this is turning into for WSR Esports. Gustav Hermino down in 6th place in class, 8th overall. Can't work out what's gone on with him today, unfortunately. Can't work out what's gone on with Boots and VDS. You mentioned it may have been a qualifying symptom. Well, I'm afraid it looks like it's an entire car team setup thing around this circuit, because they've been so strong in the first half of the season that we're hoping this is not an indication of how the second half is going to go.
Yeah, I just wonder whether Boost and VDS have, as I mentioned at the start of the race, there's two strategies to how to set up an LMP3 car for Daytona. It's the land speed record approach, or it's the articulated lorry approach, where it's quite good in the corners and not very good in a straight line. And I just wonder whether I just wonder whether Boost and VDS haven't quite got the setup, the downforce levels quite right in those cars. They're struggling today. Their best placed driver, Julien Plumet, in 6th, but he has been as high as 5th or 4th. He could get himself up to 4th. He's currently in a battle for P4 overall with Mats Kjeldsen and Remy Fortin. But I just wonder whether they've missed the trick here, Ewan, and whether WSR Esports have found something where they've got a 15-second lead over Peter Herschel in 3rd.
Exactly, it's a very big margin. Not so much for this man. Writer Engineering Esports are leading the way here, but not by very much. You can just see that LMP3 in the background. That is Mats Kjeldsen. Although that gap has got slightly bigger recently. Kjeldsen just been overtaken by Remy Fortin and Julien Plumet in the last couple of moments. That's 3rd and 4th in Pro. With Herbinot another 6.5 seconds back. We'll be looking for those positions shortly, you would have thought. Let's see what's happened here down into the West Horseshoe. I thought this was Adam Hedgecock again. It is indeed for Altitude Esports, and he has gone for a slide of the way in, and he avoids the wall. I feel like under the old iRacing grass model, he may have hit the wall there, but now it's a little bit easier to avoid it when you go off, because previously it was almost a certainty that you would hit the wall.
And I think as well for Adam Hedgecock, probably a blessing in disguise that it was dry, because if it was wet, I can guarantee you he would have been in the wall as the grass becomes incredibly slippery in the rain. But still something we haven't got for these cars just yet. It was obviously this series still running in the dry. So yes, Adam Hedgecock very lucky not to pick up any damage as well there, Ewan, because of course someone who's had his issues running down in 17th in LMP3 in the overall standings. So he's had a bit of a tough day today. I'm sure he'll want to bounce back in 2 weeks' time at Mugello.
This is Alessandro Proci, he's still leading groups, but this time it's a bit of a smaller one. In fact, it's just a pairing for 5th. Jeremy Rouleau just behind. Then Adam Isaacson is 7th behind the 4 we've already talked about. Michael Pedersen is next up. A bit of a concern for Rouleau is the fact that his pit stop was 3.5 seconds shorter, and he's still only just on terms with Proci. Maybe Proci is not in such a bad position here, but the problem is he's not really got the team support that maybe the others have in the field, as Julien Plumet gets past Remy Fortin. This is the front of GT4. Matt Loveridge is very much just joined up onto the back of these guys, and you just wonder at what speed are they going here to sort of extend a margin over Alessandro Proci. Well, last time round they were in the 52s. Proci wasn't able to do that alone when he was leading the group earlier. However, he was in the 52s last time round, so his pace is not bad, clearly. He's just got to try and go as quick as Thomas Marks Burgess, really, if he's going to stay with them. But it's going to be an important middle stint of the race. At the very least, he needs to retain slipstream. Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting one to see. Obviously, Matt Loveridge at the Monza round you, and where again is another round we've seen where draft is incredibly important. He was incredibly strong there, and some clever pit strategy jumped him up the field. So maybe we're seeing a repeat of the performance from Matt Loveridge that we saw at Monza to get himself up towards the front of the field. Timo Hayden really tucked in behind Thomas Marks Burgess, so they're trying to absolutely maximise that as much as possible. Looking at the lap times last time, Proci was around a tenth slower than that of Thomas Marks Burgess, so going to be an interesting one to see. But Sasha Anglesey running in the 51s, he's done a 51.9, so the number 3 machine, the third car in the line. You can see it just ahead as we ride on board with Matt Loveridge, so really using the draft to their advantage to pull third and fourth position back into this lead battle, but they do still have a decent gap. They're all together. I do not expect to see much fighting. I've said it now, but I do not expect to see much fighting in this lead four. I think we are going to see, if we are going to see it, it's going to be the comeback from Alessandro Perotti and Jeremy Rouleau. I think I'm very confident in saying that Adam Isaacson is now very much on the back foot. He did do a 52.4 last time, so he was running faster than Thomas Mark Burgess, but I'm not sure whether it's going to be enough. He's 10 seconds roughly behind this lead battle at the moment.
Well, don't you think that it doesn't really matter what Sasha Inglesy is doing in terms of speed? He can do as many 51.9s as he likes, but if he's got two drivers in front of him, then he's not going to go any quicker. Surely Peroti's just got to mark himself against the front driver in the group. But no, I think the problem for him comes when Thomas Mark Burgess starts getting pushed on and pushed into some low 52s and some high 51s maybe, if he could achieve it on his own. That's going to be more of a problem than Sasha Inglesy, because he can build a lot of speed in the draft. Let's see what they do over the line here. It's not looking to me, looking at the lap times at the moment, like anything particularly special, or certainly not anything that Perotti can't do at the moment.
No, but I think as well what's going to be strong for the leading four is you have got 4 cars in this pack. Timo Hayden doesn't look to be bump drafting at this stage. He is getting quite close behind the rear wing of Thomas Marks Burgess, which of course does have an effect to stall that rear wing a little bit and increase the straight line speed. So last time around, this leading pack were all faster than that of Alessandro Perotti, but you are right, Perotti has to sort of mark himself against the fastest car in this group. I think the really incredible lap time that we saw the previous time round, Ewan, from Sasha Anglesey, I think that was probably due to the fact they had a gap to close. They were around a second back. In fact, on the outlap they did go beyond a second between second and third in GT4 Pro. So Sasha Anglesey and Matt Loveridge have really been pushing to bring themselves back up, and you can see the gaps opened up just a little bit coming onto the super speedway this time around, but I'm sure by the time we get round to the start finish line that would have closed up.
Leo Bonneman has overtook Remy Fortin for 4th place in LMP3 Pro, by the way. It's a really good battle for 3rd. Overall is developing now, which is great to see. It's a lot different to GT4, which is very tactical and may well get exciting at the end. Well, LMP3 is battling happening from start to finish, and it's continuing on right now as we pass the halfway mark in the World Sports Car Championship for Season 2. It's round 5 here at Daytona. As you can see, we're under the lights at the very location we ended out our first season, and it's LMP3 exactly where the battling is for the moment, on lap 27. Now the GT4s following one another, but yeah, Adam State leads ahead of Nathan Moore. They've got nearly 20 seconds over Peter Herschel, and then it's Julien Plumet trying to find his way through. Not a battle for class position, but for overall. Then Leo Bonneman, who's very close behind him now. Actually, that is a battle for 3rd in LMP3 Pro, and it seems that Plumet is going to try and use Herschel and his slipstream to maybe try and do an overtake himself in defence, using attack as the best form of defence maybe. And Bonneman has indeed, well, they've both gone through actually. Plumet and Bonneman have gone through on Peter Herschel then. And so I suppose Herschel would have just pulled out the way there, being an AM driver.
The two teammates as well, they were bump drafting each other, I suspect, around off of Speedway 4. So I think the Boost and VDS teammates really using it to their advantage that they can. They are on similar strategies as well. And looking at how far we went into the race on the previous stint, I think they do have an opportunity where they can make it to the end on one more stop with 42 minutes remaining. Adam State still leading the way from his WSR Esports butt kicker teammate of Nathan Moore. You can see the gap on your screens. It's come down considerably after that round of pit stops. Nathan Moore able to take 3 seconds out of Adam State. Slightly shorter stop for the 88 is what has enabled that. A little bit of traffic going to get into the way. This is Alessandro Perotti and Jeremy Rouleau in their charge for the front pack in GT4 Pro. So your ex-GT4 Pro leader being passed by your LMP3 Pro leader in the 18. They're, as you say, very comfortable at the front of the field. Around 20 seconds ahead of that is Julien Plumet. But Plumet and Bonneman are really pushing to catch up to this pack, Ewan. So maybe we're going to see the gap start to be chipped away at the front of the field. Whether there's enough time to chip away at it, I am not sure. 40 minutes left with the bump draft. I'm not sure whether that's going to be enough to get back 20 seconds.
Well, let's see. There's the tacticalness going on in GT4 as well. But yeah, Bonneman is really closing in on Julien Plumet here as well, and may well be side by side again here. There's just so many chances to overtake here at Daytona. Every time you step up onto the high banks, you might be able to find your way through, and Leo Bonneman may well have another chance to do so. I'll let you know whether he makes it through or not. But they're certainly pulling away from the AM leading battle, which is not even a battle anymore. Kjeldsen is ahead of Herschel. There's Jack Osborne on his own. He is the GT4 AM leader. It's a much bigger gap than what we saw before the stops, but that's because Osborne's stop was nearly 6 seconds quicker than Lee King McGee. That's another class where battles are to be sorted out later. This is to be decided now, though. This is Remy Fortin trying to find his way past Peter Herschel. He could have done this with a lap or two ago, to be honest, because then he would have stayed with the guys battling for third in his class.
Yeah, Remy Fortin losing a little bit of time in the 3:13, but Peter Herschel still on the back of the two Booston VDS teammates. They're just up the road on the tri-oval, so if Remy Fortin can get past in a timely manner, I still think the opportunity is there. There go to Booston VDS teammates through the bottom of your screen. You can see how close it is. Fortin going for a move into the bus stop, down to the inside, and I suspect that Peter Herschel, yes, is going to lift and yield this one. It's not worth the fight. Different class. He's still going to be leading and still got a 4-second advantage over that of Mads Kjeldsen.
Well, let's see how that develops a little bit later on. Let's see if Herschel comes back at him here. I'd be surprised, but stranger things have happened. Will he just bump maybe down the straight? Looks like Plumet maybe is doing, Bonneman is doing that to Plumet maybe. Yeah, it looks like they are working together a bit here. So you mentioned at what point we're going to see LMP3 bump drafting. Well, maybe we're starting to see it actually for the first time, especially for those two for third place. A little bit there, but that's no surprise. Wouldn't expect the AM leader to try and pass a pro car, but there we are, the two teammates, Bonneman and Plumet, finally working together, and they are bringing the gap down just slightly to the two leaders, albeit by only 2 seconds. When the gap's nearly 20, that doesn't really make it much of a dent.
No, it's down to 18.5 now, so I think they've still got a considerable amount of work to do. The lap times last time around were incredibly similar. It looks as though Plumet took about a 10th out of the leader of Adam State, which is not enough with 38 minutes remaining in this race, round number 5 of the World Sports Car Championship. So a lot of work still to do. Of course, the traffic is going to be quite influential in this. The WSR Esports butt kicker cars could lose a considerable amount of time in traffic, although just looked at my track map and they have basically half a lap of clean air and they are working together. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see a little bit of bump drafting at the front of the field. Still looking at Peter Herschel in the 77, your LMP3 AM leader, he's had a fantastic season so far. You can see Mads Kjeldsen just coming off the super speedway exit of turn number 2 to show that gap as around 4 seconds. So potentially Mads is going to gain that back a little bit here in traffic. Peter looks to have been sort of held up on the exit, but it will come back to them. It ebbs and flows in traffic, as we said all along. So Nathan Moore, as I was talking about how fast everyone goes, has set a new fastest lap of the race, and Adam State has only gone 3/10 slower.
Oh, early stop there for Bonneman, is it? In the second place of the two LMP3s. They're in identical cars, so I can't tell. It is Leo Bonneman, indeed. 37.5 minutes to go. That's probably towards the upper limit, to be honest, in terms of what he can actually do on fuel. He will make it home, because surely he wouldn't have pit if he couldn't. However, he has gone for the early stop. He's clearly, as a result, doing a long stop, and I don't really understand why, because he had a teammate to work with. He had possible fuel saving chance as a result if he wanted it, but if not, well, he's pitted anyway. Unless he was out of fuel there, I don't really understand coming in, because now he's going to go out on a full tank of fuel.
I believe he was out of fuel. He's 21 laps into a stint. He had the early stop earlier on after the incident down at turn number 3, the first international horseshoe. So Leo Bonneman pushing, I think, the fuel as far as he can go. 20 laps to go, 21 laps to go. So about the maximum as to what he can manage. Here is a replay. Nicholas Skiat in the Kinetic Racing machine around the outside, and contact into turn number 1. I think a little bit too much of a squeeze on the GT4 from the LMP3 from the view of the aerial shot. Could have left a little bit more room. This is the lead for LMP3 Pro. Nathan Moore and Adam State, they're actually going to swap positions. So we're going to have a new leader in the form of the 88 as we head across the line. Or am I talking too soon? No, I'm not. Nathan Moore cycles into the lead, maybe thinking he has a little bit more outright pace that can pull Adam State around here.
Well, that's an interesting change, but there you go. They have decided to reverse the places. These two 4 and 9 points off the championship lead respectively, by the way, in what's becoming an increasingly 4-horse race now with the drop weights applied. It's 4 drivers separated by less than 10 points, with the gap more than double back to Julien Plumet, who's 5th in the LMP3 Pro standings. Meanwhile, quite an interesting change in GT4 Pro as Thomas Marks Burgess drops to the back of his group, and Timo Hayden has done likewise. So Matt Loveridge and Sasha Anglesey are now leading the way, but I don't quite understand why, as they lose time continuously now, and Sasha Anglesey all of a sudden is a second ahead of the rest. I don't really understand how and why Impulse are ordering their cars quite like this.
I wonder whether there's maybe a bit of force majeure in that. Could Thomas Marks Burgess and the driver of Timo Hayden, apologies, could they have picked up a slowdown? I'm not 100% sure. I don't have that information, but it is possible that they have picked up a slowdown penalty. That is of course speculation, but Sasha Anglesey now cycling himself to the front of the GT4 Pro field. Matt Loveridge is going to cycle himself into second, so he's now inside of the Impulse Racing sandwich, apart from being that sort of little bit of extra side course on the sandwich at the front. So it's going to be interesting to see what Matt Loveridge does here. Does he cycle back into 4th position, or does he try and stay second? Sasha Anglesey has got a second out of the front of the field, so almost at a point where he's breaking draft range for the lead of GT4.
Well, this is very interesting and a surprise as well, as Remy Fortin makes his way through, I think. Going up on the high side here. Matt Farquhar in LMP3 as well. So we close in on the final half an hour now and the finale to this race. Fortin now into the pit lane from LMP3 as well, with 34 minutes remaining. These guys will be safe and sound to make it home, but it's going to be about pit stop lengths from here on in. And just who needs to take what, especially in GT4. 5.5 seconds the gap now between Hayden and Pwoti, who is losing a little bit of time, certainly losing time to Anglesey, who I reckon maybe is the quickest of the Impulse drivers. Now that he's at the front of the group, this is maybe going a bit quicker than it was.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. Replay up on your screen now. This is of the Impulse. This is actually the change for the lead in the Impulse for the Impulse racing cars. We're looking at Thomas Marks Burgess down into the bust, or so, apologies, the one chicane on the live pictures. Oh my word, that looks as that Adam Locke and Benjamin Gregory involved in that one.
Well, it's Chico Leventhal who's spinning into the inside of the course, and he's going to go back to pit lane. Now, what's gone on here in... I'm interested to see what's happening here on this replay, to see how the Impulse guys decided this and what they were going to do. So Thomas Marks Burgess pulls to the right-hand side here. He was leading the way. Then through goes Hayden, or doesn't go. No, he does. And so Loveridge dives to the inside of both of them. In fact, it's Loveridge who takes the initiative. Excuse me, it's Sasha Anglesey, of course, who goes to the inside because he's leading. And then it's Matt Loveridge who doesn't necessarily disrupt the Impulse game plan, if you like, but he does take the initiative on himself and take second place.
Yeah, I think that's very clever from Matt Loveridge. He clearly wanted to make his way a bit further up in the pack, didn't quite feel so secure, sat back in 4th position. And in fact, they have started to break away of Sasha Anglesey and Matt Loveridge. So back to the lead. Nathan Moore, Adam State putting on really good pace at the moment at the front of the LMP3 Pro field. Another replay coming up on your screen. This is what happened down at turn 1, the 667. Chico Leventhal into the first corner, just spun it. And he's gone around. Is this, please don't tell me this is on the rejoin. Yes, it was. Oh, Ben Gregory just was unsighted. Not sure who the Boost and VDS car was as well there that almost got caught up in that, but Gregory just, I think, the unlucky party in that one.
I think so. Couldn't really do anything about that. It is a blind corner, of course, with the wall in the way, as you're quite low down in these prototypes, quite close to the fort, and so there's not a lot you can do to stop halfway around the corner, even if you could see him. This is Julien Plumet, so we have another look as to just exactly how much Ben Gregory could see. Now, don't forget, I would argue, slightly higher than Ben Gregory would be in the car as well, though not by much. This is what he sees. Not a lot, a bit of smoke, but you know, even though he does have a second or so of seeing Leventhal there, he's already well in the motion of a corner, which he can't really break out of.
I would argue that Gregory had no time to get out of that. Personally, he turned into the corner. You're committed at that point to change your line, running the setups we do at Daytona to try and avoid that accident. I think it was just, it was unthinkable. Yes, there was reaction time there, but I'm not sure whether Gregory could have done too much about that one there.
No, I don't think so either. Two pairs starting to form here at the front of GT4 Pro as we approach half an hour to go. Surely they've got to be in soon. They made a short stop, for goodness sake, in the first round. That was after just over half an hour of this race. We've got less than that time remaining, and so into the pit lane comes no one. I thought they would blow the double yellow line there, but apparently not. They were just trying to psych each other out, maybe. As Loveridge tries to go for the move, it all of a sudden it's just turned up a little bit in terms of pressure here at the front of GT4 Pro. It's very much like the situation we saw earlier on when I said that, you know, free track position can be gained on the lap before the pit stop, because you've pretty much done all your fuel saving now. You're not going to lose much by leading them around, but you will gain track position, and if you're all coming in nose to tail, then that one car length is an advantage on the way down to pit lane. So Matt Loveridge, I think, was trying to get that into turn one. He couldn't manage it, clearly, and is still having to settle with second place.
No, I think Matt Loveridge as well here is starting to play a few games with the Impulse Racing cars. He's 31 laps into a stint, Ewan. No apologies, I think that's my timing screen breaking, but he did pit sooner. So I think Matt Loveridge may be psyching himself up for that next pit stop. I think he is going to have to come down into the lane earlier than the three Impulse Racing cars. How early that's going to be, I'm not sure. Maybe you'll see Impulse come with him, I don't know. Loveridge was incredibly quick. He was midfield GT4 overall to get himself up towards the front of the pack. He's clearly put a good pit stop time in. It looks similar timing to those around him, so some excellent outlaps. So I think Loveridge is a risk to these Impulse Racing cars at the moment, so that has to be something they consider.
Let's see what is being considered on the way towards turn one this time around then, with the front four still just about in a draft train, but Thomas Marks Burgess in some ways struggling to hang on now. The gap closes to 0.2 of a second. Does any of them duck below the line? No. They continue on, but you are right to point out, by the way, Matt Loveridge did come in 2 laps before the Impulse guys, so he might have to come in on his own at some point, but I can't believe that Impulse are even 2 laps away from a pit stop right now. I thought they would have been in by now, all of them, never mind just Loveridge, but the Impulse guys as well. But clearly Impulse can go on another couple of laps unless Loveridge has really been fuel saving. Oh, contact! And Sasha Anglesey's gone around. Oh, so has Thomas Marks Burgess. Timo Hayden has to duck to the grass to avoid the championship leader. Sees 2 of his teammates go around in front of him, and somehow he comes out unscathed.
And that was exactly what Matt Loveridge needed at that point. He's got a 3.5 second lead over Timo Hayden now. The other 2 Impulse Racing cars, Thomas Marks Burgess and Sasha Anglesey, losing even more time with contact as they try to rejoin the circuit. In fact, it looks as though Thomas Marks Burgess now back with Alessandro Puotti, Adam Isaacson and Jeremy Rouleau. So Matt Loveridge, I think, now in an excellent position to get himself out ahead. We're looking at the replay. This is looking at Adam Hedgecock in the 13, who has had, let's be honest, a pretty terrible day so far, down into the International Horseshoe. As the slow-mo cameras come out, quite easily gets past Matt Loveridge. Was this a poorly timed dive on the 3? I think it could have been. A Sasha Anglesey just been an unfortunate party in this one.
Does he turn in? Hedgecock is quite a long way alongside by this point, but does he lock up and go straight? Does he miss the apex? Here's the impending doom. And contact. There you go. He's not hitting the apex. There's the angle that tells all.
He's locked the front right.
Yeah.
I think that's the key as to why Adam Hedgecock hasn't quite made the corner at that point. There is a front right locked.
How does Matt Loveridge avoid contact there? That's remarkable, because at one point the two cars were making a perfect roadblock in front of him. He just ducks between them and gains 3 seconds out of it as well. All of a sudden, Alessandro Proti is right involved in this race. So is Adam Isaacson, by the way, who's caught that group, and he's right in there now as well. This is another look at it, as it's very unlucky, to be fair, for Sasha Engelsey, as the two teammates hit each other, actually, as they get going again. That's not going to do any team relations any good, I'm afraid, but either way, that's probably the least of their worries at this stage. What a dramatic moment, and all of a sudden, the race favourites, well, who are they? We don't know at this stage. It's all of a sudden in the air with 25 minutes to go.
And I think it's just something we're going to have to watch, looking at the leader now, which is Matt Loveridge, but he's actually lost about a second, or about half a second, over the previous lap to Timo Hayden. Hayden actually taking another half a second out of him through the middle section of this course. So I think Hayden really starting to get his foot down. I think the fuel's coming off. Nathan Moore from the front of the LMP3 Pro field. You can see Christophe Herbigno has gone up to second. Nathan Moore has bit the bullet. He's come down onto the pit lane. Adam State has stayed out. So WSR Esports splitting the strategy, clearly thinking that there's something that they can advantage from that. Nathan Moore rejoining the racing surface in 5th overall behind Herbigno and Mads Kjeldsen. We're currently fighting for 3rd. So the pit stop's really starting in earnest now, Ewan. I'm so excited to see what happens with GT4, because I think that incident has thrown a lot of things up in the air.
Yeah, I think this is going to be very interesting indeed. There's going to be less in LMP3 for us to look at in the near future, so we'll enjoy this while we can. It's Adam Locke trying to get through on Joost Boomeister in 4th place. I can't help but fear. I'm still getting him wrong. Anyway, 4th place in LMP3 AM for the moment. We'll see where these two come out, because they've made their final pit stop of the day. However, also in their class, oh no, Skits hasn't been in yet, so none of them have been in just yet in LMP3 AM. And once again, we don't know where Boomeister's actually going to be compared to the others in his class. We do probably know where Adam State's going to be. It'll be either just in front or just behind of Nathan Moore, who pitted the lap directly before.
And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of outlap Nathan Moore has had. Looks like he has had a little bit of traffic, although I think Adam State has had traffic on the in lap as well. So State's still stationary as Nathan Moore comes off of Speedway 4. So I think it's going to be close on the exit as to who's going to be in the lead. State is moving a 17.3 second stop, 3 seconds faster than that of his teammate. Nathan Moore obviously having to take a little bit more fuel at this stage of the race, and after his shorter stop in the first section of the race. State back onto the racing surface. He's going to rejoin just behind the 35, or the 87, apologies, and you can see it's a decent gap over that of Nathan Moore.
It is a decent gap, and a lap traffic in between as well, which really emphasises the margin of 2 seconds, which is what Adam State has. Well, is he on his way to a first win of the season in the World Sports Car Championship? Adam State. It's going to be WSR Esports' first win of the season, you would have thought, but who's it going to go to? Now, how on earth are the GT4 still going, is my question now, because they are still out there on the circuit. Matt Loveridge, 2.7 seconds ahead of Timo Hayden, who was the least affected of the Impulse drivers from that incident. Then you've got the guys who were. Alessandro Proti, who was able to join them, so was Adam Isaacson. Thomas Marks Burgess and Sasha Engelsey are in there, although Engelsey actually has lost a bit of speed in the last few moments, and he's dropped back a little bit. Jeremy Rouleau is 6th, but Matt Loveridge is in now, and the real games are going to begin in GT4. Timo Hayden also into the pit lane. Thomas Marks Burgess, Sasha Engelsey, all of the Impulse drivers in at once.
And I don't think Jeremy Rouleau could follow them in at that point. He had a curled black flag, a slow down penalty, so Jeremy Rouleau having to go for one more, getting himself out of the draft. But as you say, all the front runners in GT4 that were running together at the top 4 until that incident down at the first International Horseshoe, they are into the pit lane. It's going to be interesting to see here who gets out ahead. Timo Hayden running a 25-second stop. Thomas Mark Burgess with a 24-second stop. So slightly faster for the 72. I don't have a pit stop time for Matt Loveridge, so I can't tell you what that time is going to be. But eyes are on the exit of pit lane, and I do think Matt Loveridge is out ahead of all of them.
Yeah, he is. 24.6 was his margin, and that's another second put into Timo Hayden there, who is out now as well, out onto the circuit, and a lot quicker of a lane time as well. There is Matt Loveridge, just in behind, quite annoyingly behind, Ben Hicks as far as he's concerned. He'll feel he could go a bit quicker through the infield section, and now we'll emphasise that point as he goes down the inside of the West Horseshoe. He's a bit late on the brakes here, he's got to be careful. Hicks gives him a bit of breathing space there, doesn't run him over entirely, which he could have done there. So Loveridge is up to 5th place, but how many of the 4 drivers in front, but really Emmanuel Gaxella only a second ahead, is not really going to play a role. Neither is Josh Boot, because he's an AM driver. What about the 2 remaining out front, Proti and Isaacson, because Rollo is not even with them anymore really. He's 3 seconds behind. How long are Proti and Isaacson going to leave this one, because they've already gone round once more, they've gone round a second time. Now I think they can do this one, and maybe they'll have to come in now at the end of this next lap time, but it's surely going to be pushing maximum for these two now. They are still in the mid 52s, and they're still doing exactly the same time as each other.
Yeah, so Jeremy Rouleau in 3rd position, he has come down onto the pit lane. So Alessandro Proti and Adam Isaacson, I wonder whether just trying to utilise this low fuel as much as possible, take as short a stop as possible, that could catapult them back up towards this lead battle, Ewan. I think it is all going to sort of concertina back to itself come the end of the race. So that is going to be an interesting point to watch out for. But as Adam Isaacson, I think this is really, I think Barcelona, the first round, he had the issues with the sausage dog curve very early on. I think Daytona, again, the start of the second half of the season, just not been Adam's day. Really, not so much struggled today, but just hasn't had the luck.
There is one of the Wave Italy cars, Jamie Rouleau, getting out onto the pit, onto the racing surface again. Headed for Sasha Engelsey, I think, onto the circuit. As Josh Boot pits, that will now be behind Jack Osborne, who recircles to the lead, even ahead of the likes of Lee King McGee, who is a lot closer pre-pit stops, not so much anymore. These are the 2 though that we're going to be focusing on here into the pit lane. I believe it's going to be this time around anyway. If they can leave it any further, then their final stop is really going to be a very short one, and that may worry the Impulse Racing drivers who have already stopped.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much shorter this pit stop is. Obviously, the longer they've run, the less fuel they're going to have to take on. So I think Impulse Racing did pit with some fuel in the car, so I don't think the pit stops are going to be that much shorter. Alessandro Proti going to be the first one to come down onto the lane. Adam Isaacson going for 1 more lap. So clearly the 78 has a little bit more in reserve than we originally thought. That little bit more time in the draft has clearly helped the SimRC.de driver.
Yep, it has. I'm surprised because he had to do a bit of catching to get into that draft, but anyway, he's clearly been able to save the relevant fuel afterwards. This is the driver, though, with the best chance of winning, maybe, out of the other strategy here. Matthew Loveridge, to give his full name, is right in this race, and he's sidestepped all of the Impulse Racing drivers. It's hard to pin too much of the blame on Impulse for the fact that none of them are actually in contention for the race win at this very moment. However, they will still be feeling the effects of this one. It was, though, an LMP3 down there inside that has really almost thrown a grenade in their plans and blew it up entirely.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's not, as you say, it's not Impulse Racing's fault as to the fact that Matt Loveridge has kind of been catapulted into the race lead. Loveridge did an excellent job of getting through that incident. It's very difficult, especially at those slow speeds in that corner, to try and change direction and avoid the incidents. I think Loveridge, part of it was luck. It was also heavily, definitely skill in making sure you get around those incidents. So I think very strong suspicion that Loveridge will go back to the front of the pack at the end of this pit sequence, with Isaacson being the only one left to pit. That's your second position in LMP3 Pro, going a little bit deep, and I think that's going to cost Isaacson time. He's going to be very lucky not to get the slowdown on the exit here. The lights flashing, clearly not happy at that move from Nathan Moore, which was incredibly aggressive into the Le Mans chicane.
It certainly was, and that may well have cost Isaacson any hope that he had of the race win. I mean, he had very little hope anyway. Alessandro Proti is nowhere near, for example, but he's behind Timo Hayden indeed, but Isaacson has to come in now, whether he was planning to or not. He might as well cut his losses and make his way into pit lane right now. Just less than 17 minutes remaining in this race. As we look at Loveridge in the other part of the screen, I'm pretty sure in that main pot. We're going to be seeing a new race leader very shortly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Matt Loveridge is going to cycle back to the front of the field. Adam Isaacson, the last pit stop we expect to see, going incredibly deep into the race. In fact, 16 minutes remaining, so not that much time left. He has left his pit box. 21.4 second stop for Adam Isaacson. That's actually going to gain him about 3 seconds on the others, so he's not going to be challenging for the lead of this race. It looks as though Matt Loveridge has already gone past. In fact, it's going to be pretty close. You can see him just on the left of the screen as Loveridge comes into T1. I think Adam Isaacson could cycle out second or third position here, Ewan. This short stop could help him.
It looks like he is going to be second here, and it makes you wonder what he could have done without that interruption at the bus stop last lap, on his in lap anyway. Through down the inside goes one of the Boots and VDS cars, but right on his back tailpipe now will be Timo Hayden. Now, is there long enough in this race for these two to string up a semi-alliance for the next few moments, try and catch the leader, and then fight this out as a trio? Because if they work together, their two cars will certainly be better than one.
It's 2 seconds, and you only need a second for the draft. You know what? I think it could be possible here, Ewan, that Adam Isaacson and Timo Hayden could group together and start to chase down Matt Loveridge. If Matt Loveridge get caught in traffic, you know, we've seen it for Adam Isaacson. In fact, I'm going to stand by this comment, I genuinely believe this. If that incident down at the bus stop hadn't have happened, Ewan, Adam Isaacson, he wouldn't be leading. I don't think he lost that much time, but he would be in draft range of Matt Loveridge, and he would be challenging for the lead within the coming laps. So Isaacson really has to get together with Timo Hayden now to push forward and catch Matt Loveridge.
I think I could go along with that as we see an LMP3 battle in the meantime into the bus stop chicane. Quoty could be similarly disappointed here, well, no, not quite, as two LMP3s get ahead in time. This is the battle a little bit further down between Callum Brandt and Nikolai Loft. Brandt is through, and Nikolai Loft goes back to 8th place in the pro standings. Still behind a couple of AM drivers. Petter Herschel, by the way, still on a AM podium, as Christoph Herbenau and his suffering has all of a sudden seemed worth it. He's now in a battle for 3rd place overall. He is 3rd in class, and he's going to salvage another podium from a great season for himself. I reckon he will be the championship leader no matter what happens between Adam State and Nathan Moore here. Surely Christoph Herbenau is going to be the new championship leader at the end of this race, because once again he has got a good race out of a bad circuit for him on the face of it.
But it's also maybe showing where the setup hasn't quite been right for the Boost and VDS team, in that he is still behind Petter Herschel, the AM leader. Doesn't seem to have made his way past. Whether he's come out behind in pit stops, not 100% sure, but it looks as though Christoph Herbenau has managed to recover himself to a decent position, probably helped slightly by the fact that his teammates did come into strife later on in the race. You know, with a bit of contact, Julien Plumet and Leo Bonamine have dropped down through the pack. They are on an alternate strategy, which was not faster, so they're currently running down 8th and 9th overall in pro. I believe that is going to be 5th and 6th, apologies, in the pro category. So yeah, Christoph Herbenau, a very good recovery here. Adam State as well at the head of the field. He's keeping that gap constant at around 2 seconds, and that is what he needs to do for the remaining 13 minutes.
Yep, it is. Let's see what happens for the remainder of this race then. Will there be a leading battle in GT4 or not? Well, I think the answer to that already is yes. The gap down to 9/10 of a second here between Matt Loveridge and Adam Isaacson. We are going to get a fight for the win here. That was very close to a disaster there. For 9th place in LMP3, it could soon be 8th, as Leo Bonamine is getting caught here. Oh, he's being caught dramatically. What is he doing here? Well, he's been in the pit lane the furthest to go. He might be really struggling on fuel here, to be honest. And so through goes Callum Brandt and Nikolai Loft, and they continue their battle right in front of him into the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, not 100% sure why Leo Bonamine has dropped behind these two. So this is now a battle for 8th position. Brandt and Loft, as you said, they're going quite hammer and tong at this. Loft, of course, running right up at the front of the field at the start of the race. He's dropped back a little bit over the course of this event, just didn't quite have the pace to stay with the leaders. Callum Brandt having struggling, I think, a little bit in qualifying. He's come back in the race to run in the position he is. So in the closing stages of the race, I think this could be an interesting battle to keep an eye on, especially now that Leo Bonneman has dropped back. If he is struggling for fuel, Ewan, I can see him sitting in the clutches and waiting to attack in the final few laps.
Here we go into the corner that brings them onto the banking. Turn 6 for the GT3 leaders. GT3? We don't even have them. GT4 indeed. Matt Loveridge ahead of Adam Isaacson, then Timo Hayden, who once again has made the front group despite all of the trials and tribulations that Impulse Racing have gone through today. Isaacson needs to gain a few points, really, and he could do with winning this race, to be honest. Matt Loveridge could as well. He's 4th in the pro standings. Through they go in the bus stop chicane and out onto the NASCAR turns 3 and 4 banking as well. Just over 10 minutes to go, and they'll be wondering where the LMP3 leader is in a few moments time as well, to work out how many laps they have remaining, but that's less of a worry at this very moment as the battle for 8th place continues on. It's about how many laps there are to go, and where do you position yourself for the final lap, which is often such a discussion point here at Daytona.
I think that's an interesting question. It depends on what your strategy is for the final lap. If you're leading going on to the final lap, are you going to concede the position going into turn 1? That could allow the attack out of the bus stop, but that's obviously conditional of you having a good run through the bus stop. If you don't get a good run through the bus stop, all of a sudden you've potentially thrown away a win. So it definitely is disadvantageous to be the leader out to the bus stop. We've seen this before, the drag race to the line. It is more advantageous to be 2nd or potentially even 3rd if you can get a good enough run. But I think if you've got enough gap and you get a good enough run, it could be possible. That GT4 lead is going to be the one that I think really shows it. Nathan Moore has been hunting down Adam State at the front of the LMP3 Pro field, but at the moment just isn't quite close enough. The lap times are faster, but they're not that much faster to the point where I think he's going to become a danger in the next few laps or so. Although I say that, there's still 10 minutes remaining. There's a lot can happen in this race.
There certainly is, especially at Daytona. What a finale we had here in the back end of 2023 for the first season of the World Sports Car Championship. The leading battle in GT4 AM especially was an enthralling one. Josh Boot trying to right the wrongs of that day, he will feel, and is currently 6.5 seconds away from doing so. Jack Osborne looking like he's cruising to a victory there. Adam State and Nathan Moore look like they're cruising to a 1-2 overall. Battles further back in LMP3 are ongoing, but in GT4 Pro it's really on between Matt Loveridge, Adam Isaacson and Timo Hayden as they try and find a winner from the 3 of them. Isaacson gained 0.4 of a second on that previous lap as they're about to complete another one here. He's now sat behind Loveridge. Does he feel that 2nd is the prime position on the final lap to take the win, or will he try and defend from the front? It seemed to me as if Loveridge was trying to usher him down the inside there and he wasn't taking the bait.
I think there's a little bit of hastiness from Adam Isaacson in the way he's driving that Aston Martin. I think he wants to lead and defend from the front, as you said. Maybe thinking that Matt Loveridge doesn't quite have the overspeed, but Timo Hayden sat in the wings. He's waiting, he's praying, Ewan, that an opportunity will open up where he can maybe just dive through. I think 2nd position is a good position to be in. I think 3rd, potentially, you've got to do a bit more work to really be competitive on that final lap. Of course, with the Mercedes, they've got a lot of grunt in the straight line. The Aston Martin, an incredibly good car, but I don't think quite has the legs as the Mercedes has, which is why I think Adam Isaacson may be getting a little bit worried. He wants to lead and defend from the front, maybe seeing that as the strength of that car.
Out onto the banking again for the 3 leaders. The LMP3 not going to play a role in this one at all. Hayden tries to make him play a role by taking some of the slipstream, pulling high and staying high actually around the banking. Not entirely sure his reasoning for that, but pulls down low to make use of gravity. Get the added speed, and there are the chasers just behind, and there are the overall leaders actually, so they will be able to work this one out in terms of how many laps are remaining. It may well be 4 at the line here, maybe 5, because it's quite close between these leaders taking on another lap or not here, and I'm not sure which one it's going to be, but they'll find that out as we go. Looks like it is going to be 5, but it's not going to be comfortable by any means. Here goes Adam Isaacson. Does he push here or does he try and go through? He's going to push. And is he trying to push both of them away from Timo Hayden in third?
I think that is exactly what is happening. Hayden has dropped back over the course of this lap, and Adam Isaacson seeing an opportunity to build a gap here. Although I think Hayden's going to have an opportunity to come back. He is. So all that work that was done on the previous lap ruined by Adam State in the 18 as the LMP3 Pro leader comes through. And in fact, actually, Adam State having a better run through traffic than that of Nathan Moore. He's pulled the lead at the front of the field out to over 2 seconds. That was verging on a second just a lap ago. So Nathan Moore, all that work he's done, Ewan, over the last 5 laps or so, he's got to do it all again. Matt Loveridge clearly wanting the racing line into the kink and wasn't quite getting it. That's actually going to impede his run. Adam Isaacson looking down to the inside, but I don't think the opportunity is going to be there. A bit of contact behind. That's the 48. Used Boom is in the 48, I think, causing a little bit of contact with Timo Hayden, but Hayden, I think, coming off from that, very lucky.
And Loveridge is going to get dived here too. He needs to steer out of that. And Isaacson had to slow down too. Bit of flashing of the lights going on here as a result. And Isaacson, I think, tried to get down the inside there onto the banking, but instead has to tuck in again to Matt Loveridge, who is right ahead of him now onto the banking. Well, what a interesting moment this is for these three. There goes Isaacson pushing again, but I think it's a forlorn hope as far as getting away from Timo Hayden goes. And once again, there will be a lot of waiting here by the looks of things. Is Isaacson going to leave it until the run for the line here? Because it is, in idealist terms, the best place to be on the final lap, but it also means that if you get the bus stop chicane wrong, then you've almost made no attempt to go through and you won't get the win by the end. It's a very difficult place to be, and sort of depends on what Timo Hayden does here as well. If Hayden tries to get involved, then all of a sudden Isaacson's plan to be second on the last lap doesn't really work.
I think Isaacson, I'm not looking at how he's come back to Matt Loveridge coming out of the bus stop in the draft. I think maybe doesn't quite have the legs on the Mercedes. The Timo Hayden looking incredibly strong on the brakes. He's staying out of the draft in the straight line, but gaining it all back on the brakes into turn number 1. So that one's going to be an interesting one to watch over the next 4.5 minutes. But as you say, Isaacson, I think still eyeing up where he wants to make the move, maybe trying to see where Matt Loveridge is weaker. And I think that's where he's going to try and take advantage.
Through the kink on the infield they go. Almost as one for these three. Down in the braking zone of the West Horseshoe. Isaacson in the middle of this Mercedes sandwich, if you like, and out into the final corner of this infield, and now the banking again as well. That second little group you can see there is headed by Alessandro Proti and Thomas Marks Burgess. Once again, I don't know what Proti's going to think of this race really with 4 minutes to go. Obviously it was either going to be 4th or 5th for him today, but he would have been hoping his final pit stop was a bit shorter than that, and unfortunately after leading the first half an hour it's sort of transpired how we expected it to, in that he would always drop back having been drafted off of for about half an hour. Sadly he's not involved in this battle for the race win.
I think Proti, he's had the pace all day. Potential that he could have got back up there, but as you say, that first stint really hurting the number 61 in able to be in the fight for the second half of the race. So using that extra fuel, obviously not being in the prime position for the fuel save. Timo Hayden and Adam Isaacson getting closer to one another. What's Timo going to do? I think he's going to try the bump. He's not. He's going to look to the high sides. Almost contact as they came onto the tri-oval. But Timo Hayden looking to the outside. We know that Mercedes is strong on the brakes, but Isaacson looking down the inside of Matt Loveridge. I don't think he's close enough for a move. Hayden's still looking around the outside, but the inside trumps into turn 1. I think it always will. So Hayden, I think, is starting to get impatient here, Ewan. With 3 laps to go, he wants to get up towards the front of the field. I think he knows he can put the pressure onto Matt Loveridge. Down to the inside of the International Horseshoe. This is a move that's going to look better. So Timo Hayden up into second position. Adam Isaacson now, I think, in the weakest position of the 3 in the car that doesn't quite have the straight line speed, sitting in 3rd.
Yeah, I think this is Timo Hayden looking for that second place going into the final few laps, but Isaacson wants it back again down the inside at the West Horseshoe. It's late on the brakes, but it won't give him the inside for turn 6, and that slide won't either. Hayden gets straight to the racing line indeed, going into turn 6, and so he will be in prime position now. What does iRacing do as they head towards the penultimate lap when they cross the line in a few moments' time? And what does Matt Loveridge do here? He's in danger of getting away from the both of them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Matt Loveridge, he's pulled nearly a second lead on the both of them, but I think Adam Isaacson has noticed that the bump draft is coming down into the bus stop, so Timo Hayden being pushed back towards Matt Loveridge into the bus stop. They're going to break contact here into... You don't want to be pushing each other through here. That would be suicidal, but they're incredibly close. Isaacson doesn't want to get too close to Hayden to make sure that there isn't a break of downforce for Hayden, but the bump draft coming in strong. This is potentially where we're going to see a change for the lead. Look at the overspeed that second and third position had, but Hayden, okay, that's interesting. He isn't going for the pass. We're going to get a 3-car bump.
Yeah, so I think everybody wants second here, and how are they going to resolve this? Because they can't all be there. And Isaacson's going to say, well, I'm just going to go for the lead then. Outside line, round the outside of Hayden. Has he gone too far here? Into turn 1 he has done. He's gone way too late on the brakes there, and Hayden will slot straight back into second all over again. He'll have to defend into the International Horseshoe probably as well. Maybe not. It's going to be Hayden in second then as they go. We think this is the penultimate lap, but where's Adam State here, and how quick has he been in the last few laps? Because if there is another lap, then he is going to be, well, not good news for whoever's not in second. Just over 30 seconds to go, and it's State going to be cutting it close, but we believe he'll be going on to one more.
Yeah, that is what my information is telling me, that with 28 seconds to go, Adam State will do one more lap, and look at where Nathan Moore is. He's back to a second. One bad bit of traffic for Adam State, and that could be day done. But looking at the track ahead of him, it does look reasonably quiet. They're going to pass the 10, and I think beyond that it could be 1, maybe 2 cars for the rest for this final lap as he comes across the tri-oval with around 5 seconds to go. The white flag flies, and Adam State starts the final lap of the race. On the main screen you can see your GT4 Pro battle for the lead. Still 1, 2, 3 with Loveridge leading the way from Hayden and Isaacson. No more moves being put in on this lap, but let's see, coming out of the bus stop, I think we could start to see some shaking up.
That was very close to Isaacson getting a cut track there, cutting it quite fine on the inside, but he's okay. He will slot into third place. Through goes one of the LMP3s. Can he use one of them maybe to try and vault himself into second here? That's the real battle here, because by the time they get to the line here, surely the driver in second place is going to be in prime position. Over the straight they go. Has Isaacson accepted his fate here and decided, maybe I can win this from third place? No, he goes to the outside. He'll brake late again, but not quite as late as last time, because that saw him nearly off the road. Here he goes. He cuts it a lot finer with Hayden there, who squeezed to the inside wall very nearly. Side by side through the S's. Hayden cut up on the curb. Loveridge still trying to hang on to the lead here. Down into the International Horseshoe. He brakes early. Hayden goes a bit later, and maybe that gives Isaacson the position here.
No, not quite. I think Isaacson might have been in the prime position, but Hayden got the better run off the corner using that Mercedes Grun. Of course, the Mercedes AMG GT4 and the Aston Martin Vantage using the Savior engine, and that's the leaders! That's the LMP3 leaders, and they've had an incident. That's Adam State in the wall without a front end on his car. Nathan Moore was facing the wrong way and is still stopped. Third position is Christophe Hermignon, but he's still a long way back. He's still coming down speedway number 2. I think Adam State has got this.
I think so. You're right, Hermignon is miles away, absolutely miles away. Adam State has got none of that front end left. I don't even know if his front wheels are working anymore. His front left is, the front right is absolutely toast. But he's going to win at Daytona in the bizarrest finish you'll see for quite some time. Adam State wins round 5 of the World Sportscar Championship in a dramatic, drama-filled finish. Here we go in GT4. Adam State has won the race overall. Adam Isaacson has gone down the inside of Timo Hayden, and he's sabotaged the championship leader through design or by accident. He's given Matt Loveridge the speed and the power to run away with this race right now, and it looks like he's going to take it. Meanwhile, Peter Herschel has taken it. He's the LMP3 AM winner. Who's the GT4 Pro winner? It's Matt Loveridge, who's going to get the easy road to the line.
Well, that in a space of about 30 seconds, Ewan. I wasn't sure who was going to win either of the classes. I thought we were going to see Adam Isaacson, Timo Hayden facing the wrong way coming through the bus stop. How those two held on to it, I do not know. But Matt Loveridge being given the chance to get away, and I think in the least dramatic fashion, Jack Osborne is going to take the win in GT4 AM, 7 seconds over Josh Boot after Boot had his incident at the start of the race. So the 606 managing to get back to second. No, actually, Lee King McGee has just taken second place, so it's still going off in GT4 AM. But Jack Osborne, 2 in a row, 2 rounds in the World Sports Car Championship.
What has happened to Josh? Don't tell me Josh Boot has had something weird happen to him as well. He's run out of fuel. Well, have you ever seen a finish quite like this? What a bizarre finish at Daytona. One winner with 3 wheels on his wagon. Another winner gifted to him somewhat by self-sabotage from second and third place drivers, and another podium driver with not an ounce of fuel left in the tank at the end of the day. Well, we'll get a replay as to what happened to the leaders in a few moments' time, but that was one of the more bizarre finishes you're ever likely to see. It's Adam State who wins, though, by 3.5 seconds to Nathan Moore, both of whom crashed in the bus stop chicane on the last lap. Christophe Herbigno picks up a third place, another one, to add to his tally. Peter Herschel wins in AM from 4th, with Remy Fortin on debut in 5th. Max Kelsen finishes 6th after qualifying on pole. Overall, ahead of Nikolai Loft, Julien Plumet and Leo Bonamant, the top 9 from that race. Then the rest of them, our graphics have slightly broken that, because for whatever reason Callum Brandt didn't finish the last lap. That's why it's so broken. Nicholas Gates is with him. Then we got Joost Boomeister in 12th place. Benjamin Gregory, Adam Locke, Adam Hedgecock to round out the LMP3s. Matt Loveridge wins ahead of Timo Hayden and Adam Isaacson in GT4 Pro, ahead of Alessandro Proti and Thomas Marks Burgess. Apologies, that top of your screen. 21st place was Sasha Anglesey, who'd be particularly disappointed with Adam Hedgecock, I would have thought. As Jeremy Rouleau finishes 22nd ahead of Jack Osborne, Mario Gazzella, Lee Kim McGee and Josh Boot, who ran out of fuel to the line there. Jack Wilkins didn't complete the last lap, as far as my timing screen is showing me. So, not sure why we're missing 27th. Evan Atapas, Lee Berridge round out the top 30. Then we have Rob Sutherland and Michael Pedersen together there, for reasons unbeknownst to me as well. Ben Hicks next, and he was the last driver to finish the race. Chico Leventhal, Matt Farquhar and Toby Ward and Taylor Lane were the LMP3s not to finish. Richard Simner, Paul King, Ashley Finch and Howard Hassan did not finish in GT4. Well, that was odd. We'll have a little look as well at what happened to those in LMP3 overall. It's a spinning GT4 right in front of Adam State, who clatters them with the front right. Nathan Moore tries to avoid and spins himself. What a bizarre situation.
If Nathan Moore had kept that one going, I think he could have won this race. So clearly Moore, I think, spinning in sympathy for Adam State. The fact that Adam State was able to bring it back with 3 wheels on the wagon, I think is another testament to how good a drive these two have had. I was a bit worried towards the end of that final moment on that final lap that Nathan Moore was going to get him, but I think the gap was just big enough. But that was Ben Hicks, actually, the GT4 that was spinning ahead of them. But what a final lap, Ewan. I think that's one of the most intense races that I've seen in sort of 7 years of commentary.
That was quite something to see. Let's hear from one of the protagonists of that moment at the end there, Nathan Moore, who joins us now. Welcome in, Nathan. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on a podium here tonight, but it could have been a lot worse. Tell us about that final lap between yourself and Adam.
First of all, can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Me and Adam were just laughing at the end. That was crazy. You know, there were no team orders or anything like that. We were racing as hard as we could. I was trying to catch, but I couldn't just quite get into the slipstream. But then, yeah, towards the end, the GT4 spins. I catch him out of the corner of my eye coming through the bus stop chicane. I don't know what way he's going to go. And then I saw Adam hidden, and then at that point I think he's feeling like he's lost the race, and then I put a little bit too much steering angle in, and with how loose the setups are low down towards the Daytona, it just went around, but luckily still a 1-2 finish, which was nice.
Yeah, exactly. Were you guys expecting such a strong showing here at Daytona after the season that you've had, and particularly the season that some of those ahead of you have had, like Matt Caruana and Christophe Herbigno, have looked unbeatable at times? Were you expecting to bounce back at Daytona, though?
Yeah, to an extent, yeah. I think like we're very strong at Daytona. I remember, the rower back in January, the car was really, really good. So we knew coming into here that we had a strong car, but yeah, we didn't quite expect our rivals to be. I think maybe they just messed up the qualifying or whatever. But I think, as we see, Christophe still got a podium anyway, so he did good damage limitation today, but. Yeah, we didn't expect to have the winning margin that we had, but we knew we had a strong car coming into this.
You certainly did. Congratulations on a 1-2 and second place for yourself. We look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Nathan Moore, second place today. We've done it in the reverse order, but never mind. Adam State can also join us now. There's only one place to start, Adam. It's at the final lap, of course. We just spoke to Nathan about his perspective. What was yours?
Well, I mean, as Nathan demonstrated, he decided what you should do if you tried to go right at the bus stop. So I decided to try what you do is you should go left. And apparently, either way, it ends up in the wall. But yeah, it was an interesting final stint there because it was very much to and fro between us two with the traffic. But I think that just kind of sealed it off as an interesting way to end what had been a very good race over the wall.
Well, just chat to us a little bit about what the race was like in its entirety. Finally, at the end, Christophe Herbigno seemed to get himself going and get himself into third. Matt Caruana wasn't here today. When you knew that and saw that, what were you sort of expecting from this race?
I mean, from as Nathan had performed at the Raw with the victory there, I knew we had a very good car coming into this, so I kind of felt today was kind of the day we needed to get maximum points in order to cement our chances of trying to beat Caruana and Christophe. And with Christophe, I was quite surprised actually how his qualifying went. So when it kind of got to that point, I knew I just had to get my head down. And then once me and Nathan kind of got to the front, it was let's get to the final stint, try and score maximum points. And then from there, especially when it came to that final stint, it was kind of the best person will win between us.
Well, you certainly did take that one too. Congratulations on that for the both of you, and thanks so much for coming to chat to us as well.
Thanks for that.
Thanks so much, Adam State there, the winner in LMP3. The winner in GT4 overall was Matt Loveridge, who also joins us now. And there's also only one place to start with you, Matt. It's at the very end of that race, but talk to me a little bit about those final 10 minutes as the two behind were swapping positions every now and again. Adam was trying to get past both of you at once on a couple of occasions, and in the end his move into the bus stop chicane sort of meant you could walk away with the victory, if you like, on the run to the line. Tell us a little bit about what you were feeling throughout that race. At what point did you really think you were going to win?
It was pretty tense actually. I was not expecting to win, especially with how far I started down, but I think as soon as I saw Timo and Adam fighting the bus stop, it was then I thought game over, but they gave me a hell of a fight. I've got to give it to them. They're awesome drivers.
Yeah, I mean, how did you get yourself up from the back to the front, because you were at the back or 8th in the front group in the first part of the race? You came out in the lead. How did you manage that?
I kind of had to call on a couple of strategies to ensure that I'm not held up by prototypes. But even then, I thought it was going to be a bit sketchy on fuel-wise anyway. Sorry, I'm not the best in interviews.
Oh, that's fine. Absolutely fine. Congratulations on your win, Matt, and thanks very much for coming to chat to us as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Matt Lover is there, the winner in GT4 Pro, and he really did have some holding off to do towards the end there. What a finale to that race. It took a while to warm up, of course. There's a lot of tactical waiting going on at Daytona, but it always culminates in a great finale. Hoping that this one will too. Join us again in a couple of weeks' time on the 7th of May when we visit Mugello. I think it's fair to say, Jack, that will be a different affair to this one. I can see Jack talking to me, but his mic is not...
Oh, apologies, I muted
there
my
we go.
mic for some reason. Yes, so Mugello obviously back to the tight and twisty circuits that we've had previously in the season. It's going to be a debut in the World Sports Car Championship, of course, new to the iRacing service. It's held some excellent races in the past, of course, Formula One heading there over the COVID period when we needed some rounds in Europe, and it did put on a good race, so I'm sure we will see it. It's going to be an interesting one for the multicast races, Ewan, because a lot of fast sweeping corners where GT4's going to need all the circuit possible, and LMP3s are going to need that too.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Join us again in a couple of weeks' time, of course, here on RaceSpotTV for that one. For now, though, it's time for us to bid our farewells. A big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in over the course of the evening. Hope you enjoyed that dramatic finale. It's Adam State who wins overall in LMP3, with Matt Loveridge winning in GT4 after final lap deciders in both categories. Hopefully we can see the same in a fortnight, and hopefully you can join us then too. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Jack Stiles. Mike Yao has been behind the cameras as always, and until we see you over in Italy at Mugello, it's goodbye for now.